sending this out. Should be. I'm gonna give it a couple moments. Let's see if anyone's there in the chat. See if the stream's going. Looks like the stream is going. All right, I'm gonna pop out the chat so I can see you guys while I'm managing the stream. It looks like we're live now. All right, so welcome everyone. This is Orange's Restart. I am joined by Brandon from What About Nintendo, and tonight we are here to discuss all things Metroid. It's on a bit of a somber note because if you've been following, you know that Metroid is my jam. I love Metroid. It's one of my 3 favorite franchises, right? Metroid Prime is one of my top 5 favorite games of all time, and I've been talking up Metroid Prime 4 for, I don't know, like a year and a half already. Like the build-up, like the moment it was announced at E3 2017, I was screaming, right? That was a year and a half ago, and even before that, there was no. I don't think there was, but from that point on, I've been doing a lot of speculation and discussion videos analyzing the history of Metroid and Retro Studios, like a lot. And now, it's taken a very interesting turn because I'm sure most of you have heard Metroid Prime 4 has been delayed. So extensively. The entire development process has been restarted, and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk all about that, about what Shinya Takahashi had to say. We're going to be talking about a lot of rumors surrounding it, what different reputable sources have come out and said about the development, about Retro Studios, and different things along those lines. We're going to be getting into maybe a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, 2D Metroid, and just basically what should we... We're going to get to everything, including Metroid Prime 4. Like, what kind of changes could that mean? We're going to do it because it's fun. We're going to talk about how the game's going to change because of this, even though we don't even know what the original one was. And we're going to talk about that, too. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the failed Metroid Prime game. We're going to talk about Retro Studios and what they've been working on. We're going to talk about the future Metroid Prime 4 game. We're going to talk about 2D Metroid, and we're going to be talking about Metroid Prime Trilogy HD. So we actually have a lot to talk about.
So many things.
And all these different projects, all 5 of these different, well, Retro Studios is a studio, but all these different things are all interconnected. So I didn't really want to try and figure out a structured outline. So as you can see, the topics are just one single topic, all Metroid, because this is just going to be an organic discussion between me and Brandon. Of course, we'll be checking with the chat with you guys. I'm sure you guys have lots to say as well. So we're going to be going in and out, but there's a lot to talk about and sort of dissect here. But Brandon, before we jump into that, is there anything you want to kind of talk about or bring up before we jump into things while we let the people flow into the chat and really just dive into this?
Oh, honestly, there hasn't been really much going on lately. It's been very, very quiet other than this very depressing news, which is strange because, of course, we've all been waiting for this elusive direct that will never happen, apparently. It could happen this week, but will it? I don't know. It would have to be literally the last day of the month to be on the Thursday, which is pretty ridiculous. So I'm not really rooting for that one. I still think it's going to happen. It's possible, but at this point, I'm just kind of like, yeah, January's kind of done. Might as well just get it out in February. And other than that, man, it's been quiet. It's been quiet. We've been really having to go into those theories and stuff to talk about everything. So it's just been waiting for something. And this was not the news I wanted to hear when I saw a video that said Metroid Prime 4 development update.
That's actually an interesting thing, because for me, I woke up at 10 a.m. Friday, and the first thing I usually do, I check the stats for my channel, and I see some comments on the discussion video that I literally spent 2 days editing. A 35-minute discussion video where I edited a 35-minute discussion video as if it was a normal video. Right. So I put way too much work into it. I got a free trial of After Effects to put additional effects into the discussion. Like, I did a lot of extra stuff for this discussion video. And then a day after it's published, it's been basically... It's not even relevant anymore, right? It technically is, because you talked about both Metroid Prime and Bayonetta, but now the big one was Metroid, right? Most of us were there for Metroid. I'm excited for Bayonetta. I just started playing Bayonetta 1. It's really good, but Metroid's the big one. and that entire thing was just messed up. But anyways, I had seen comments on it already, even at 10 a.m. Friday. I was like, "What's going on? Are these just trolls, or is there something here?" Right? And then I go and I look and I see Metroid Prime 4 development update. So I already knew, because the first thing I saw that day were comments that were suggesting, "Hey, there's something wrong about that release year." So I already had a feeling that this was about some sort of delay. So, when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is bad. It's bad, but it's also, there's good things to come from it, right? Obviously,
right.
Retros, we're going to get into it, but from what I've interpreted, from everything that I've interpreted, Metroid Prime 4, when it does come out, is probably going to be really good. Like, that has been validated for me from everything I've seen. The problem is, it's years away, and I was hoping that it was already going to be really good, right? I had faith that the development process was actually going smoothly, as reports were indicating, until
Reggie himself, my man, Reggie, over here,
literally
saying it's all good, saying we're about to get a release date. No.
Yeah, December, he was saying, I think it was December. He can be quoted as saying the development was going really well.
Yeah, I made a whole video on him, like, oh, we're gonna see a release date coming soon for the game. No. No.
Yeah. So we all kind of... So, I mean, I don't think the discussion video was wrong. I don't think it was crazy to think that Metroid Prime 4 would come out in 2019. But that doesn't mean it would, right? It's not. It's not happening. But that was because, and I said it in the discussion, assuming there's no sort of delay or setbacks in development, the game should probably come out in 2019. There's a good chance of that. Right, because we thought the game probably started development sometime in 2016, maybe even storyboarding and concept building was happening in 2015. Like there's a paper trail of evidence to think it's been in development for a while, but when development goes bad, then that changes everything, right? That's assuming development goes smoothly. It hasn't, as Shinya Takahashi told us, and now we're probably looking. Brandon, I know you think 2021 is the year. I want to believe it's 2021.
Yeah,
I
clarify. I don't. That's the year I think is like. I think it's likely. I think it's possible.
I think it's possible.
2022 is also just as reasonable to think.
I mean, if you give Retro 4 years, then that gives them more time to make it a huge game, right? And then of course, we can try and dissect what they mean by restarting, right? Does that mean 100% from scratch? Do they not reuse anything? Like, we're gonna get into that, but I first want to get into the chat, because like I said, there's just so much to kind of tackle here. I'm not even sure where to start, but we're gonna see what you guys are saying in chat, because I know a lot of you guys have a lot to say. A lot of you guys care about this, like me, because this is probably one of the reasons why you can follow this channel, because it's about Metroid, man. Like, yeah. But I saw Isaiah and Super Chris earlier. How you guys doing? Rip Prime 4. That is your name. Did you change your name? I feel like you probably did. He was saying that I bought my Switch just for Metroid, so I really hope Trilogy or 2D Metroid does release this year. Me too. I really hope that happens. Hello there, Punk Agent. How you doing? Sabbath. What is up, bro? Yes, Takahashi looked bummed. I mean, I think it was a very sincere video. It was very sincere.
You could tell he was not happy about it.
Right. Well, for them, it's, just from a monetary position, like, they put... it was a big project. Like, so...
Right.
We're going to be referencing Imran Khan, the senior editor from Game Informer, several times throughout this discussion. But one of the things that he brought up from what he's heard, right? So take it with a grain of salt, but it's probably true. He has no reason to lie. He has sources. He's telling us that with Metroid Prime 4, there was an experimental, like, sort of ad hoc development process, basically meaning they had multiple different studios in different countries working together in tandem to make Metroid Prime 4. Which may sound kind of crazy, but I feel like that alone should tell you that this was a big game, a big budget game, right? Like, they were using multiple studios to get this done. And so there's a lot of money in there. A lot of money. And to completely restart that says a lot. A lot.
Yeah, I mean, I made the point in the video I made that Nintendo has to really care about this this franchise and just to, because they could have just put the game out. Like they could have put it out if they had wanted to. There's been plenty of Nintendo games that come out and they're not that great. I mean, Star Fox Zero really should have been canned, but it wasn't. Like, there are games and series that come out and they're not amazing, and you can tell you're just like, oof, that was a mistake. But no, Metroid, they're like, no, we're not doing this to the Metroid fans. We're restarting the whole project. We're giving it to Retro Studios, and I think that shows that they respect the fans and that they care about that franchise.
I agree with that, but I want to add to that in saying that the fact that they did this, it shows, yes, how important it is for the fans, how much they respect the fans, how much they know that we want this game. But I also believe that Nintendo themselves want this game, right? Nintendo,
right?
Yes, they're a business, but they're also there's honor involved. They make games because they like games, right? The people they have there that work there are there because they love games, right? Maybe the executives, the businessmen are a little different. They care more about the money, but the developers, they're there because they love games, right? And they're artists. So, and a lot of them have a huge respect for the history of Nintendo. And if you have a huge respect for the history of Nintendo, then you should know that there were 3 games that kind of were shared like a gameplay design, right? You had Mario, you had Zelda, and then you had Metroid, which was kind of like a hybrid of the two. And Metroid was pretty special too. It just didn't sell as well over the years. So there were those roots. And then Super Metroid was created, and that was a miracle in terms of how well it came out. No one expected Super Metroid.
So good.
It is, but no one expected it to be incredible, and it turned out to be. And now some people consider that to be one of the greatest games of all time. Mm-hmm. And then in 2001 with Metroid Prime, no one expected that to turn out to be really good either, but it did. And that game is considered by even more people to be one of the greatest games of all time.
Right.
And then the trilogy was a masterful trilogy. It had 2 really good follow-ups. Of course, not considered to be as good, but still really good.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's kind of like the legend of Metroid Prime, right? It's a really good series. And I think even though they didn't sell really well, Nintendo understands the quality that's there. And I've been saying for a while that, like Breath of the Wild, like Super Mario Odyssey, Metroid Prime 4, in my opinion, is meant to kind of be the revolution for the Metroid series. It's been dormant for such a long time. They want to do what they can to make Metroid modern, but still appeal to the core fan base and be true to its history and make an incredible game and hopefully sell better than any previous Metroid game, the same way Breath of the Wild is doing, the same way Mario Odyssey is doing compared to 3D Mario games. So, basically the point I'm trying to get, I know it's long-winded, it's just that the fact that they had to show an individual video to announce a delay. We've only ever seen Nintendo do that for Zelda. They did that for Breath of the Wild. Nothing else. So I think that goes to show you just how much care they're putting into this, just how high their personal expectations are for this game.
Right.
They want it to be a Game of the Year candidate kind of game. This isn't like some B title. Even though Metroid hasn't sold as well, quality-wise, Nintendo is pushing this game to be on the level of a Super Mario Odyssey or a Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think Metroid has always had that potential. There's just been, I don't know what about it that just hasn't made it sell super well. I'm just trying to think, what is it that it just doesn't sell? It's so weird. And I can't even think about what it would be, to be honest.
There's several factors. One, you could just be marketing, right?
Right, yeah.
But, I mean, let's just look at this. So, Metroid Prime, and, give or take, 500,000 copies, I might be a little off by, but Metroid Prime sold a little bit over 2 million on the Nintendo GameCube. The Nintendo GameCube sold about 20 million copies, systems. So, there was 10% of all GameCube owners had Metroid Prime. On the Nintendo Wii, huh? Yeah,
it's not bad.
That's not bad. The Nintendo Wii, Metroid Prime 3 sold a little bit over 1 million. There were 101 million, more than 101 million Wii units sold, yet only about a million Metroid Prime 3 games. So that was 1%. So Metroid Prime was 10% of the entire, 10% of owners had that, and only 1% of Wii owners had Metroid Prime 3. So even though there was 10 times as many systems out there, the game sold half as many copies compared to its original. That's weird. I understand on the Wii there's a lot of casuals involved, but still, even when you take them out of the picture, I'm sure there are a lot more just core Nintendo fans that had a Wii that didn't get Metroid Prime 3. So I'm not entirely sure how that worked out, but it didn't.
Yeah.
But on the Switch, everything sells. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's going to sell. And Nintendo's marketing is a lot stronger than it ever has been before. So even if all they do is just re-release the for example, Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, I'm pretty damn confident it may end up being one of the best-selling Metroid games of all time. Just because it's on the Nintendo Switch. I'm sure if they
release the HD, it's going to be the best-selling Metroid. Like, it's just going to be the best-selling Metroid. I think at this point, with the amount of hype, and that's the strange thing about the marketing for this game, because Metroid Prime just has never sold well. And yet, Metroid Prime 4 is being hyped by literally every Nintendo fan. Even fans who have never played any of the series are super hyped for this game. It's just a weird thing, like there's just this huge outcry for Metroid Prime 4 when Metroid hasn't even sold that well ever. So it's really weird, like the way the marketing has worked and the way that people have been hyping up, the fans have been hyping up, Nintendo's been hyping up. Everyone is really excited for anything Metroid now, whereas before it was just kind of like nobody really cared.
Yeah. And it's interesting, though, because as you're kind of referencing, right? Like, we live in a world now where everyone's kind of talking about this, right? Back in the early 2000s, that wasn't really a thing. But because of this controversy, we can call it a controversy, whatever you want to call it, because of this news, like, it was trending. The Metroid Prime Friday, the whole Metroid thing, yeah, I think someone mentioned it in the chat. So someone even mentioned that the video was trending. Sabbath said the video was trending. Yeah. Like, Metroid hasn't been trending ever. Like, that's not a thing. Right. The Metroid Prime 4 announcement was trending, actually, as well. But aside from that, like, Metroid hasn't been trending. So, in this day and age, there are more people who are seeing this game, right? I think part of the problem with the Metroid series is just kind of like, there's been an audience out there, but they haven't really been sold, right? The advertising for it has never been that strong. The awareness of it hasn't been that great. So if you add the awareness, right, all this controversy, all this build, all this talk about the Metroid, so much more people are going to try Metroid when it finally comes out. The Prime games, by the way, the 2D Metroid games is a little different, but
yeah, people don't really care about those nearly as much.
The hype isn't there. I'm not saying they aren't. No, I love 2D Metroid.
They're great.
Yeah, I love it. I'm pretty excited for Metroid Samus Returns. I love Super Metroid.
Super Metroid's amazing.
It's incredible games. I love the original Metroid. Like, they're great. They're great games. But Metroid Prime is where the hype is at, right? Metroid Prime is like 3D Zelda. Like, sure, 2D Zelda is great, but it's 3D Zelda that's the showstopper. That's where the money's at. Same thing with Metroid Prime. That's kind of what it's become, or at least what it's probably going to become from what we can kind of gauge based off, the internet and reactions and stuff. So, considering the awareness now because of Twitter and social media, and because the Switch is such a good system for selling games, that alone is probably going to be really beneficial for Metroid to sell really well. But I also think that whenever Metroid Prime 4 does come out, it's going to be made in a way that is going to be even more inviting than previous Metroid games. Kind of like Breath of the Wild, actually. Breath of the Wild is far more inviting as a Zelda game than previous Zelda games. That doesn't mean it's casualized. It doesn't mean it's easy. You could make easily, Breath of the Wild is the hardest 3D Zelda game. It's the hardest 3D Zelda game. So, Metroid Prime 4 could be the most hardcore Metroid game yet, but also still be true to what the Metroid series is, and still have some subtle changes that can be more inviting to a larger audience. So I think they're going to do something like that. What exactly that will be, we may get into that a little bit later, but we'll try and talk about that for a little bit maybe. But for all these different reasons, Metroid is going to sell, and I think Nintendo recognizes that. They know they have an opportunity here, but they need to make it work. They need Metroid Prime 4 to be it, because it cannot fail. So there's a lot of stakes. So restarting it probably was the right move if they weren't feeling good about the quality, especially if Retro Studios is willing to take it up again. Which kind of brings up another sort of weird little topic, because a lot of people aren't even sure if Retro Studios could do this. Like, they've lost talent over the years, they haven't come out with a game in over 5 years. Well, it's going to become 5 years. Some people are very skeptical that they could even handle this. And I want to get into that, But I first want to kind of check out the chat because I know there's still a lot of you guys there I haven't said hi to. So let me just kind of see what you guys are saying. Let me see. Mastermind, hello. Dayala Singh, hello. Severio, how's it going? Robeer. Holiday 2021 is like, I think, the earliest we'll see Metroid Prime 4.
Right.
I would love to be wrong. I will love it. I don't care about being wrong. I just care. I do care, but I care more about getting the games I want. Like that's more important to me. So, hello there, Vilbeard. Your trap card's been activated? Okay. Yu-Gi-Oh reference. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. Rip Prime 4. I was also a little choked up about Prime. Like it. Even in the first video I made, that was pretty sad. Ridley DeHawk is asking, hey Andre, do you think that Prime 4 might utilize aspects of 1.5 of B Metroid Prime 1.5 and make it bigger? I don't know what you mean by Metroid Prime 1.5.
I don't know what he means either.
Yeah, you might have to let me know what you mean by that. But I do think that Prime 4 is going to be the biggest Metroid game yet. Yeah, it's going to be the longest. It's going to be the longest Metroid game yet. It's going to have the largest scope yet, and it's going to be the best look. Like that's all given to me, and that's not even. I feel that's a pretty safe prediction. That's basically because, well, 2019, and actually by the time the game comes out, 2021, the standards for games are so much bigger and higher now. Like the games back in the early 2000s, like the scope of those games are pretty minuscule compared to how games are now. And if you go back to the 90s, they were even smaller. The 80s, they were even smaller. So simply because the standards of the industry have increased so much more now, the game is going to be the biggest, largest Metroid game yet. Like for that reason alone, easily. Like developers are way more talented now. They have a lot better technology now. That's a given.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's no reason to think it's not going to be the biggest one yet.
But because they also may be trying to make it the biggest one yet, maybe 3 years is... 3 years might be a little optimistic. Maybe they do need 4 years now. I mean, if they are treating it like Zelda, right, because we sort of brought up earlier how they had its own individual development update video. They've only done that for Zelda. If they're treating it like Zelda, then maybe it's also going to have a delay cycle or high chance of delay like Zelda, as we've already seen with the restart. So, a 4-year development cycle isn't weird for a Zelda game. Maybe we should also expect that for Metroid.
It's definitely possible. I don't think we're... Well, I don't want to get into it because they're still reading the chat, but I don't think that they're restarting completely from the beginning. I think they're keeping a lot of things, to be honest, from the other build, but we'll get into that after we...
I definitely want to touch on that too. But let's see. Shuntaro Furukawa said, yeah, I might have dropped off my coffee on the Metroid Prime 4 files, which is why it got delayed. My bad. So Nintendo EAG, Jesus, come on, man. You're not even supposed to be involved in development. You're just a businessman. What's going on?
We got Sabbath says, imagine Nintendo releases a video about Pikmin 4 restarting development. Dude, I swear, Pikmin 4 probably did restart development. I'm fairly certain that they just scrapped whatever they had and remade the entire thing.
I have a different theory. I want to get to that really soon. Just let me see. Hello there, Jugs McGee. So Mastermind's asking, just want to know why rework the game. Is the story, gameplay, out of track, like what's going on? Well, we don't know exactly what's going on. We don't know exactly what's going on. What we do know is that from what Shinya Takahashi said, he said that Nintendo was not satisfied with the quality of the game. They have very high standards for the game. And then from Imran Khan, what he's heard is that they had multiple studios working on it and they just weren't on the same page. So there were probably aspects of the game, I don't know if that means like different modes or different engines that are being used at different points of the game. Like there's so many different ways it could be going wrong. But I guess basically aspects of the game probably weren't up to snuff. Maybe they weren't even on the same wavelength. Maybe the creative even vision of the game, since there was different studios, they weren't on the same page. It wasn't unified. It didn't feel right. Well, when you look at the other Metroid Prime games, right? Like they all had a creative vision. They were all directed under one house. Mm-hmm. And Metroid Prime is kind of timeless. When you play Metroid Prime, like it's it all feels right. The atmosphere is there, the art direction is there. It's very consistent in what it is. So maybe that has a big part to do with it. Maybe the polish wasn't there. There's so many different things that could have been wrong with it. But I think ultimately, whatever game it would have been, I'm pretty sure it would have been fun, but it would not have measured up to the original Metroid Prime. And I think Nintendo wants to come back with a bang. They don't just want an okay to good game. They want something that's going to be a Game of the Year candidate. They want something that's going to be masterful. You know, they don't want to show off Metroid and it be kind of crappy compared to God of War, which I just started playing, by the way, and it's really, really good. So Nintendo, you know, there's a lot of they have high expectations. And so that's probably why they actually, I wouldn't be surprised if they would have tried to continue it if it weren't for Retro Studios. So let me kind of go over this theory. Retro Studios has been kind of dead for like 5. We don't know what's been going on with Retro Studios. Tons of rumors. Maybe they canceled a project or two. We know they've lost a lot of staff. There have been negative reviews about the company. There's been a lot of things to suggest that Retro Studios has been struggling. For no other reason, just the fact that they haven't come out with a game in 5 years. But according to Imran Khan, Retro Studios stepped in. They pitched a demo of Metroid Prime 4 to Nintendo. Nintendo saw this demo, this mysterious demo, and they liked it so much that they decided to restart the entire development process for Metroid Prime 4, even though it was a multi-studio development process that was really expensive. They decided to scrap it, start all over with Retro Studios. Like, that's really interesting. Like, that demo, I want to see. Like, it gives me hope, because regardless of what struggles Retro Studios may have been going through, I believe that they've picked up. If you look, you can look at the sources. There's tons of. If you go to my previous video, I put a bunch of sources for Retro Studios and games that have been going on. I cover all of that stuff, but basically, it seems like Retro Studios may have kind of righted the ship. They've picked up a lot of new staff. They may have canceled one project, but they finished off another, which is probably why they're available now, as opposed to not 2 years ago, because they're now done. They don't have any issues. They finished whatever game they're working on. They put together a demo because they probably were aware of the development, one, because they're part of Nintendo, but also two, because they would be consulted upon because they developed the original trilogy. So of course they would be giving ideas and concepts and stuff to this new team that now is irrelevant, and they put it together. And I'm really interested to see we're not going to see the demo. We're not going to see that, but I wonder if it's just something that's on another level from a technological perspective or mechanics-wise that just completely destroyed whatever this other team was trying to work on. Like, maybe they were just doing an Unreal Engine, and Retro Studios went ahead and created like a legitimate new engine that's amazing. Maybe it's like an enhanced engine for whatever game they've been working on that we don't know about yet, and Metroid Prime 4 fits perfectly in it, and that's what they showed off, and it was really impressive. We don't know that, but I have a feeling that's probably what it is, because Retro Studios creates their own engines. They're all really good. All their games have a high attention to detail, regardless of what staff has changed over the years. Every game they've released, every single game has a high level of quality. Every single game is 60 frames per second. Every game is smooth. Every game has very good graphics. Every game has so much attention to detail. There's so many little Easter eggs here and there. There's so much smoothness and fluidity to their games. They're like the only Western developer that can create a game that feels like a Nintendo game, which is probably one of the reasons why they're a part of Nintendo now. I imagine that it may have been the case that Metroid Prime 4 was going to kind of feel maybe like a Star Wars Battlefront game or something, based off the Star Wars 1313 devs that were a part of this project, supposedly. And whatever Retro Studios is working on, like, I don't know, man. Well, I really want to see what Retro Studios has been working on, because I feel like that's going to give us an idea of what to expect from Metroid Prime 4.
I want to see what the other studio is working on and why they canceled, because there's so many questions, because there's a bunch of different things that it could be, and depending on what it was, they could reuse a lot of what they already made. Like, there's just so many different things that it could have been gameplay, and maybe the graphics were actually really, really good, and so they can reuse a lot of the assets and the engine and the physics and stuff. But maybe, you know, the gameplay wasn't quite where they wanted, or maybe they were trying to take it in a different direction that they didn't really like, and they can reuse a lot of stuff. Or maybe it was the story, or maybe the graphics just sucked. Like, we don't know. I have a feeling it wasn't the graphics, though. Otherwise, I think Nintendo would have stopped them sooner. be like, kind of, guys, this game kind of looks like shit. It's no good. Um, so I'm just like, depending on what it was, maybe they can reuse a lot of things they already have.
Right. The problem with that, though, is just that they said they're restarting development. I don't want to, like, look into Nintendo saying and say, and try to think, oh, maybe they mean something else. I think they're being very transparent, and when they say restart, that means they're kind of going back to the drawing board, and they're kind of going to reassess exactly, like, it's going to be a different game from whatever this is. But I do agree that, you know, it's possible that maybe this demo for Retro Studios working on is an entire engine already. And if they already have an engine in place, maybe they just have to do some optimizations to make it work for Metroid Prime 4, which could cut down on development. But that's just speculation. It could just be a demo they put together in a week, kind of like the 2011 Wii U demo for Zelda. Like, that crazy-looking, awesome demo, that was made in a week. So, you know, even if it could just be a proof of concept, and that's all they showed to Nintendo, but my optimism and hope says that they actually created, like, this innovative like engine that has great mechanics, kind of like the Breath of the Wild engine for Zelda, and they showed it off for Metroid, and it was just impressive. So then they have something to build upon. And I would imagine that at least the concepts that they tried to do and implement in this canceled Metroid Prime 4 game, at least some of those concepts are going to transition over. Kensuke Tanabe is still the lead, so a lot of ideas that he had for the Prime games are probably still going to be implemented. So aspects of whatever this was are still going to probably be a part of Metroid Prime 4, but I don't know if they're going to actually reuse, like, any of the code or anything like that. I don't know about that. Before I give you your turn, just one more thing I want to add. Nintendo does have a history of recycling things, though, so whatever this is, it may not become a Metroid game, but it may be used for something else in the future. They do that with a whole bunch of stuff. You can go now.
Yeah, it's very possible. It's possible we could see this if they just didn't like the... It's possible that the concept wasn't even bad, it just wasn't Metroid Prime, and they could actually reuse the entire concept for another game. Like, it's very possible, because they never said, oh, the game sucked or anything. They just kind of said it wasn't up to the Metroid Prime, and it didn't really fit with what they were going for. So that doesn't mean that they can't reuse that same concept for a completely other game, as you're saying.
Right. It's interesting, a lot of people have just assumed that whatever it is has to have been bad. It could be bad, but it's also possible it just wasn't great. Like, Nintendo just has really high standards.
The thing is, like, I think if whatever it was bad, I think they would have seen it sooner than they have. Because I feel like...
I think they would have canceled it sooner.
Yeah, they would have had to have canceled it sooner. Things don't go on this long and just be like, nope, actually, this was the worst idea you've ever had. You've been working on for 3 years.
So this is the really optimistic side of things, okay? It's weird how we get this information now, but if you follow the rumors, which are coming from reputable sources that supposedly knew that Metroid Prime Trilogy HD was going to be at the Game Awards, a lot of us were under the impression that we were going to get, like, a dual reveal. We're going to see Metroid Prime Trilogy HD and Metroid Prime 4. That's what we were thinking, which also it lines up to what Reggie was saying. For different occasions, he'd been teasing Metroid. Even at the Game Awards, he was wearing a Metroid shirt. A lot of people sort of speculated that something was pulled. Like, by the way, I don't know if you guys have heard, but one of the things that was reported by a whole bunch of different people, Direct Feed Games, even IGN expected it, Game Explain expected it, Imran Khan, the executive editor from Game Inform, he himself has said that Metroid Prime Trilogy HD is real, and it's been done for a really long time already. And just a side note, because it's done, it kind of goes on. I think a lot of games Nintendo have, like, finished and just kind of had on the shelf, like maybe Pikmin 4, maybe Metroid Prime Trilogy HD. Supposedly, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe has been, like, on the Nintendo servers for like a year already. So just kind of gonna put that out there. But
yeah, I'm sure that didn't take long to port.
yeah, of course. But my point, going back to the point I was trying to make, though, it's weird how all of these different sources expected there to be a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, and it just wasn't there. And on top of that, Reggie was saying that, hey, development for Metroid Prime 4 is going well. Like, they had to have had an idea if it was bad. Like, maybe it wasn't bad. Maybe it wasn't bad, like you said, Brandon. And maybe it just wasn't... It wasn't like one of those things where they weren't sure if it was going to measure up to the high expectation. So, which is a little different. And then, what happened was Retro Studios became available, and they made this pitch. Maybe it wasn't so much that. My point is that it was going good enough that they already had plans to reveal it, right? They had plans to reveal it at the Game Awards, and they even were telling their executives like Reggie that things are going fine. But it wasn't they weren't thinking it was going to be masterful like they wanted. So, it was good enough to not cancel is what I'm saying. But maybe once Retro Studios became ready, they made a pitch to Nintendo, and that pitch was so impressive that they realized they needed to change it to what Retro Studios was going for.
Yeah, I imagine that's very possible, because I don't think Nintendo themselves, I just don't see them having gone this far in development and not knowing that it was going to need to be canceled. Like, you would have known. You would have known pretty early on. So I think it was actually going to be released, and I think maybe Retro Studios actually might have been the ones who like, hey, guys, like, look what it could be. Like, I know this is fine, but we have this, and look what it could have been. It's like, this is not even close to what we could do. Like, we should do this.
Like, if Nintendo can pull off another Breath of the Wild kind of game with Metroid, that'll mean so much more, right? Imagine a Metroid Prime 4 comes out, and it's a revolutionary game. Like, it changes what first-person adventure games can be, right? Maybe it pushes the Switch to a whole other level technologically speaking. It's completely unique in some of its gameplay mechanics, and it brings back the Metroid series, and it becomes another major pillar for Nintendo. That's if it can accomplish all of that, which is a lot, it's worth canceling this other project or scrapping it and restarting.
Right.
So that's a possibility. It's an optimistic perspective. It may not be true. It may just be that the other one sucked and Retro Studios at least looked decent, and they were like, okay, let's just go with that. But I feel like it makes sense that whatever they had going was okay. They did plan on revealing it, but they saw something that was just so much better that's why you decided to change gears.
Right.
Which also suggests to me that Retro Studios is done, and I believe Star Fox Grand Prix is done. I think that's I think it's another game that's on the shelf, just like Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, maybe, just like maybe Pikmin 4, just like Metroid Prime Trilogy HD. Star Fox Grand Prix has been done. That's why we got the reports for it last year, but they held it off. Why? Because they had Starlink with the Star Fox coming out, so they were spacing it out, just like all these other games, and Star Fox Grand Prix is going to come out this year. Retro Studios is ready. That's why they're starting development. They're not going to scrap a game that's going to come out. Like, if it's almost done, they're not going to do that. I think Retro Studios is just done, and that's why they're starting Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, I don't think they would take on this project if they weren't at least close in the final stages, because they can't wait any longer to make this, to be honest. I think they need to start pretty much now.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that some people think that Star Fox Grand Prix was a game that was just scrapped. If you go back to last year, we even got like a promotional material for Star Fox Grand Prix. Like, there was a logo and everything. This is coming from all the same sources that reported Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Like, I feel like the reason they were getting this information was because Star Fox Grand Prix was pretty close to finished. So, I think Retro Studios just finished. I think they finished the game. We don't know that yet because the game hasn't come out yet. But when that game, if and when that game comes out this year, just remember this conversation. If this is the first time you've kind of thought of this, that if we see Star Fox Grand Prix this year, that will validate the idea that Retro Studios has been ready. Like, it's not just a situation where they had to cancel this and that, and Nintendo was just kind of like praying that Retro Studios would do it. Retro Studios is just ready, and they just can't. I feel like it would just validate the idea that Retro Studios just had a really impressive pitch, and it will just make me even more confident as to how good Metroid Prime 4 is gonna be whenever it does come out.
Yeah. I don't think Retro Studios hasn't been experimenting with Metroid, to be honest. I think they've probably been looking into Metroid for a while, even though because, companies just make projects all the time, even when they're not greenlit for them. So I don't doubt that Metroid has been something Retro Studios has been dabbling with and new technologies, and I'm sure they've been getting comfortable getting used to the Switch's hardware. I'm sure they've been doing all kinds of different tests and things and figuring out how that works and making an engine for it, because obviously they're gonna make a game for the Nintendo Switch and it's gonna look good like every single Retro Studios game does, and it's gonna use pretty much the most of the hardware. It's gonna push it to its limits like every Retro Studios game does. So I don't doubt that they've been experimenting for Metroid for a while, and maybe one of their experiments was just really good and then they showed it to Nintendo.
Maybe. And actually, going back to the Star Fox Grand Prix thing, if you go back to those rumors, some people supposedly saw the game, and from what they saw, they said the game was stunning, right?
Yeah.
Like,
they said it was really good looking.
Really good looking.
Which I can believe, seeing games like Starlink and stuff.
Starlink looks amazing. Like, I think Starlink looks great on the Nintendo Switch. I'm really curious to see how Star Fox Grand Prix is going to look. I want to see a Switch title from Retro Studios. I want to see what they can do. It's going to be really interesting to see how that is. Especially because, I mean, let's just say this, like, what if Star Fox Dream comes out and it looks worse than Starlink? I feel like that would kind of, like, lower my expectations for Metroid Prime 4 a little bit. But I think when Star Fox Grand Prix is going to come out, assuming it's real, it's going to look really, really good. It's just going to be mind-blowingly beautiful, which is going to get me even more excited for Metroid Prime 4, because I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to take it to a whole other level, because they'll have more experience, they'll have more time, they'll probably have an even bigger budget and more resources, and Metroid Prime 4 will take it to another level. That is a really exciting thing to think about. I'm disappointed that I don't get to see, like you said, Brandon, earlier, like, we want to see what they were working on now. I want to see it at least. I would love to see it. And a lot of people have been suggesting that, you know, over the next few years, we're probably going to see bits and pieces of it come out. Like, I'm sure some developers who lost their job may share that information at some point or another. And it's going to be kind of like one of those things where, like, hear about it after the fact. Like, for example, the canned Kid Icarus game that was being made by Factor 5 on the Nintendo Wii. That never happened, but they were trying to make a Kid Icarus game on the Nintendo Wii with Factor 5. If you don't know who Factor 5 is, Factor 5 is a studio that I think they kind of were resurrected, but they went down for a few years. They're responsible for the Rogue Squadron games on the GameCube. They're experts at creating flying games and pushing technology, especially on Nintendo systems. So Kid Icarus would have been a perfect fit with Factor 5, but it didn't actually pan out, unfortunately. But, you know, point is, we may hear about this scrap Metroid Prime 4 project kind of like that at some point in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard of lots of different projects, Mother 3D and stuff like that. We've seen things. Star Fox 2, before it was actually officially, like, released, we saw a bunch of stuff for that game. And people got a hold of the entire game's code. I don't even know how that happened, but it happened. So, like, I don't doubt that we're going to get information for this game, maybe even see the game running.
Yeah,
we'll be able to see exactly why it fell apart.
So I want to talk about this Metroid 1.5 thing, because I see a few people bringing it up, because it was brought up earlier. I wasn't sure what it was. Brandon's not sure what it is either. But I see Malkin Din and Really Dehaka, who's the one who brought it up earlier. I'll read both what they're saying in regards to that. So Malkin Din is saying 1.5 was a concept that Retro thought of during development for Prime 2, where the AI of her ship would be multiple personalities. It's pretty weird. It sounds pretty weird, but it sounds really interesting at the same time. And that actually kind of reminds me of Metroid Fusion, because there was her ship had the personality of Adam Malkovich, her deceased friend and commander from back in her early days with the Federation. So it's I can kind of see how there could be some sort of tie-in there, maybe. And then Ridley said, Metroid Prime 1.5 was scrapped in favor of Metroid Prime 2. Samus would intercept a distress call to a huge space colony that is run by bipolar AI. Oh, he's saying I should look into it. No, after you guys saying this, I'm going to definitely look into it. I may have to make a whole video analyzing Metroid 1.5 now, because I didn't know about that. Like, I looked into the whole history of Retro Studios and the Metroid series, but I've never heard about that, so I'm going to do some research on that, guys. I'll expect a video on it.
Very interesting idea. I could see some interesting concepts coming from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Glitchy Games is asking, do you think Dark Samus and Ridley, or Meta Ridley, being in Smash will boost sales on Prime 4 or a supposed Prime Trilogy remaster? I got into Metroid via Smash Bros. Melee when I was a kid. Yeah, I think the additional present of Smash characters definitely helps. The problem is that it would have made more sense if Metroid Prime 4 came out in 2019. I believed that's what Nintendo was building up to. Or maybe it would have been 2020 when they would have had Trilogy HD come out this year or something, but now that's been kind of skewed. So the problem with these Smash characters, not that I still think it helps, but its impact is going to be lessened now because the recency is no longer there, right?
I think Trilogy HD will likely come out this year, though, to be honest. And I think it will help this with that. And we don't even know if Ridley or Dark Samus would be in Metroid Prime 4. Like, it's very possible they could, but it's very possible that they wouldn't be in it at all.
Well, you'd probably, if you didn't hear it first, you heard it here first. Ridley will be in Metroid Prime 4. I'm telling you that right. Ridley's gonna be there. Ridley's a staple. Ridley's the Bowser, the Ganondorf. This is Metroid Prime 4 is probably gonna be like a reboot for the series. I would be shocked if we don't see Ridley. Dark Samus, on the other hand, Dark Samus was probably just the enemy for the initial trilogy, but technically, Dark Samus, spoiler alert, is Metroid Prime.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
We'll see how they pan that out. My belief, I shared this before, but basically, we know that Silex stole a Metroid at the end of Federation Force, and we know that Silex is going to have heavy involvement with the story for Metroid Prime 4. So, my personal belief is that whatever Metroid he stole at the end of Federation Force is going to become the next Metroid Prime, and then Silex will probably become like Samus's rival, which will be, you'll have the similar bouts to the Dark Samus, but it won't be Dark Samus, it'll be Silex instead, and then this other Metroid will become a super-powered Metroid, the next Metroid Prime. That's what I think, how the story is going to take place, but of course, you never really know.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. That's what I've thought ever since they came out with that teaser at the end of Federation Force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me continue down the chat. Let me see. Microrap's asking, would another Metroid rep be possible in Smash? So that's an interesting thing, actually, because this delay changes my personal perspective. Well, I don't know. I thought about it. I'm not sure. But I think it's worth bringing up. So the idea was that Silex would be one of the DLC characters for Smash Brothers. He could be advertising for the series. That kind of made sense. Silex is mysteriously missing as a spirit in Smash Bros. Ultimate, even though there are so many obscure spirits in that game. But Silex, who's been a trophy beforehand, who clearly, in terms of like secondary characters aside from Dark Samus and Ridley, is the most popular character in the Metroid series, at least from the Metroid Prime. And he's not. There's no mention of him in Smash Bros. It's weird. The idea is that he would have been one of the DLC characters, and they would have added his spirit then. Or maybe not his spirit, just his character, because he would have been a DLC character. But with Metroid Prime 4 not coming out anytime soon, that kind of shakes that idea a little bit. But at the same time, if this is a planned thing, they'll probably still come out with Silex. I doubt they'll scrap a DLC character if they were already developing it. Assuming it's Silex, there's a high likelihood it's not Silex, right? Maybe they'll just launch a spirit when a Metroid game comes out, and it'll just be a spirit event. That's a possibility. But if it was an actually planned DLC character, I feel like it'll... At first I thought maybe it wouldn't, but if they planned it already, they're probably still going to make it no matter what. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I think they would have made it anyways. I don't think they would have scrapped it.
But does that mean... But I guess the other question to ask is, is Silex even going to be a DLC character? Maybe he never was going to be a DLC character.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard to say. Nintendo, they just kind of do whatever they want these days. They're so unpredictable.
It is very true. We don't know how the rest of the DLC characters are. The speculation is that they're going to be all third-party characters. Maybe we know about one, and it's a third-party character that has no real presence on the Nintendo. I think technically there was like one Persona game on DS or something that had technically had the Joker in it, but I don't.
Yeah, but they weren't even advertising that. They were specifically advertising for
Persona 5. Yeah, it's a crossover Persona 5. That's the logo they're using. And Persona 5 has zero presence on Nintendo systems currently. That may change in a few months, but currently there's zero presence of Persona 5.
We got a Nintendo Direct, we know.
Yeah. No? January 31st. Probably not. Yeah. I don't know anymore. I don't know. Like, this has been... I thought January would be, like, kind of hype, but
Right? It's dead.
January has been a pretty It's a mixed bag because we've gotten good results from last year, so that's very exciting. But like, there's been no Nintendo Direct. Metroid Prime 4 has been delayed. Like, we've gotten a few hits as Nintendo fans this month, so it's kind of weird.
To endure the release of New Super Garbage U Deluxe.
Yeah, it's a great game. Yeah. So Jugs McGee added me. He said, honestly, I thought this was the best move for Nintendo could do. At least they are transparent compared to many other companies, and I applaud them for that. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So Shinya Takahashi, he came out with a video, the development update, and they were very, very, forthcoming to us, and that is something you don't see from companies. This is unprecedented, even for Nintendo. Like, and who would have predicted this? Unless you're like a super, super pessimistic person that just predicts any good, exciting game's going to come out never, you weren't predicting this. You weren't. So this is unprecedented, but at least Nintendo, they were honest with us. They tried to share it in a way that was interesting. I think they could have revealed Metroid Prime Trilogy. They didn't do that to kind of soften the blow. Which is weird. I want to get to that in a little bit, but I do want to focus on how, yes, Nintendo was very transparent here. It's something that very few companies do. I think it kind of goes to show you that Nintendo has a lot of people there who actually care about the games, right? Yes, it is a business. They are in it to make money, and being nice to your customers, your fan base, is smart business. But at the same time, I think it also goes to show you that they have real gamers there. They have real developers there who are in it for the art, for the creation, to make quality games. So, it's not bad. It's just, there's a realistic aspect to it, but then it still is good, I think. And it's something that most companies aren't like these days. It's like they're the antithesis, like they're the exact opposite of EA. Like,
God, EA.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember Scalebound? That didn't get restarted. That just got canceled, my friend. Just canceled.
Yeah, I kind of wish Scalebound was a real thing. That was pretty exciting to me. I didn't like the main character, though. I thought that was dumb.
Yeah, he was lame.
Yeah.
But, like, the concept was super cool.
Yeah, I think it had really high...
everything.
I think it was one of those things where they were struggling to really complete it as a whole game, and it had a really expensive budget or something, and just had to...
I think EA was just like... EA cancels every good thing that comes their way. Star Wars 1313, Scalebound. There was another Star Wars single-player game they scrapped because they couldn't put enough microtransactions in it.
I was under the impression that Scalebound was being published by Microsoft.
Was it Microsoft? Was it EA? See,
it was going to be an Xbox One exclusive.
It might have been made by EA. Maybe it wasn't.
Maybe it was a partnership.
I don't remember. Maybe I'm just thinking bad about EA because
you hate EA. Screw EA. What are you doing?
Yeah, it was Microsoft, but it might have been EA. It might have been tied to them. But yeah, it was mostly Microsoft. Sorry.
I don't know. I'm just
so
asking.
Long that I don't even fully remember.
It was an Xbox exclusive. That's all I know. Platinum Games was developing it.
Oh, Platinum Games.
Which is a studio, not a publisher. Yeah, Microsoft is publishing it.
So, yeah, Microsoft. I knew Microsoft was publishing it.
I don't know if EA has a hand in here. I feel like they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah. But
EA does have a hand in a lot of other things. A lot of other dumb things.
A lot of other evil things.
Star Wars Battlefront 2. Oof.
Yeah, no, but the point is, Nintendo is not EA, right? So I really do appreciate that they were at least told us what was going on here, and I like that they told us the Retro Studios is back. That's exciting about this, and it shows that they have high standards for this game, and it tells me that this game is going to be really good when it does eventually come out.
That's when the graphics of this game are going to be stunning.
But I want to kind of focus on the fact that they didn't announce Metroid Prime Trilogy HD. Supposedly, this game is done and ready, and the idea was for it to come out in the first half of this year. But it was supposedly going to be announced in December. It never happened. And now they reveal Metroid Prime 4 is years away. And they know it was a blow to us fans. So what does that mean for Metroid Prime Trilogy HD? Is it still slated for this year?
I think it means it's a holiday title. I think it was going to be planned for earlier, but they were like, wait. we're not gonna have Metroid Prime 4 for the holiday. We need Metroid Prime Trilogy now to get something out for Metroid in the holiday instead of Prime 4. We're gonna delay that a little bit, delay the announcement till an early direct or something, or maybe E3. They'll probably announce it in direct. I don't think they'll wait for E3. A little bit after the announcement of the delay, but it will still work.
If there's a Nintendo Direct this week and then they announce Metroid Prime Trilogy, that would be really cool. It's just, I feel like they could have just been like, hey, I know you guys are going to have to wait for this, but if the game's already ready, why? I guess they don't have to, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, they could have softened the blow so much if they announced Metroid Prime Trilogy HD.
I don't think they would want to announce.
I just wonder if I don't want this to happen, but I'm just saying, what if one of the reasons why they're gonna have Metroid Prime Trilogy HD to come out early in the year was because it was a build-up for Metroid Prime 4. Like I think you didn't say it outright, but it sounded like through subtext that you were thinking the Metroid Prime 4 is going to come out this year, even with the Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, right? Like that was the initial. It sounds like you think that was the initial plan. Am I wrong in assuming that?
Yeah. Now I think about it, I guess, yeah, because I do think it was going to come out this year, or I think the trilogy was going to come out this year. Prime 4. So that's the thing, because we're both kind of in agreement that if they came out in the same year, it'd be kind of weird. So now right. I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Here's the thing, though. Supposedly, some people are under the impression we're going to see both Metroid Prime 4 and Trilogy HD at the Game Awards, and they were both scrapped because of Metroid Prime 4. Maybe the plan was to have Trilogy HD come out early in the year, and then have Prime 4 come out like in December. Like, I guess it's possible. I don't know if that makes too much sense, but based off how they're announcing now that they're kind of pushing off the game, like it's weird to me. It's weird. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe Prime 4 was just always going to be a 2020 game. Maybe it just is, or it was going to be. But now I don't know. But my concern is that if Prime 4 was meant to be a holiday 2019 game, which we don't know that, right? It's probably fair to assume that it was going to be a 2020 game if Prime Trilogy was coming out this year. But maybe Prime Trilogy HD is just not even that big of a deal. Like, what if it is just basically like Metroid, basically running on Dolphin with dual analog controls? That might just be it. I mean, you literally made a video, Brandon, which I know is getting a lot of hate right now, but I think your point stands that when Nintendo does their remakes and remasters, I think a lot of people don't like that you use the term lazy, but you're right in saying that they don't put as much effort into them, but they're just not big budget remasters. They're just simple, optimized versions that look a little bit better with some quality of life changes, and they're okay with that because the games still sell. What if that's all we're getting in Metroid Prime Trilogy? Especially Metroid Prime Trilogy, it's 3 games, so that's a lot to rework already, which would lead me to believe they would put even less effort into changing everything because there's so much to change. Like if you want to enhance the graphical engine, you have to work through 3 games instead of 1 to do it, It takes more.
It is a bit easier because I think 1 and 2 both run on the same engine.
Aren't they all on the same engine, all 3?
3 might be on the same engine. I know at least 1 and 2 are. I mean, because 3 was on the Wii, I'm not sure. Well, I guess the trilogy, if they're basing off the trilogy, then they're all on the same engine already. So
the honestly, just got enhanced game by game. It was the same engine that was just like polished up every game.
So then if they're all on the same engine, that makes it a lot easier because you just need to port that engine over, and then as far as changing out textures, honestly, isn't hard.
The textures isn't even the thing that I want. Like,
I think putting in HD textures would go a long way to making the game look a lot better.
I think they need to like add particle effects and lighting and a lot of additional effects like that. I'm not even asking for it would be nice if they were to change the polygon count, but I understand that might be asking too much. But like,
I feel like that game had a good enough art style where the polygons kind of added to the look. Like the art style of the game was kind of based on that.
personally, I just hope that Prime Trilogy HD looks better than Metroid Prime on Dolphin. Metroid Prime on Dolphin looks really good, by the way. Like, if you've ever, like, just Google, like, 1080p, 4K, 60 FPS, Dolphin, like, the game looks great. It looks great on Dolphin when it's maxed out on a good PC.
Great.
But that's basically the game just kind of being scaled up with some very minor, simple enhancements that can just be done across, like, all different, like, ROMs on an emulator, right? Like, I would hope that Prime Trilogy HD looks better than that if they actually focus on that, you know?
Would. I mean, obviously having HD textures would help a lot because the textures quality on old games just isn't good. But honestly, Metroid just has, even going back to the original Metroid, there's just a lot of really solid effects work going on. Like, it holds up pretty well.
It does.
I think there's pretty easy ways to substitute things. Like, they were already working with, like, particles in, like, the snowy areas of the game where the snow would fall, and that was kind of particle-based. Or at least it attempted to look particle-based. So they could maybe switch that up for a more real particle base.
I just think they can make the lighting and particle effects are all really good in Metroid Prime for its time. I just hope they enhance that on top of the textures, right, and not just, have a Twilight Princess HD. Like, I want a little bit more effort put into it. I
feel like, though, like Twilight Princess HD on a technical level looked a lot better, but the art style didn't hold up. Metroid's art style holds up really well, so you bump up those textures and it holds up just way better. It will be a way better increase. It will be like, that Wind Waker HD, where you look at the original Wind Waker, and you look at Wind Waker HD, and you're just like, whoa, holy crap, that looks so much better.
Wind Waker HD is gorgeous.
It's really not that much of an upgrade at all.
They changed the sky, like the whole skybox was changed.
It's a different skybox. I think it actually has a physically rendered skybox, because like the clouds actually have cached like shadows and stuff, kind of like Breath of the Wild does. So,
do you think they would add new content?
Honestly, I would like that Kraid. Everyone talks about the Kraid boss fight, but I don't think so.
No.
But I do think it's very I mean, they can add like bloom lighting would look really good. There's easy ways for them to make this game look really good. Like, lighting and shadows is the biggest thing. They're not that hard to implement, and those are probably the biggest things for that kind of building that atmosphere.
So this is my ideal Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, and maybe I'm setting my expectations way too high. Probably am. So, definitely don't believe this. But my ideal Metroid Prime Trilogy HD is kind of like we're talking about with the graphics. Like, the game is going to be enhanced in terms of textures, lighting, bloom effects. It's going to look a little bit better than what you would expect from a Metroid Prime running on Dolphin on max settings, right? Like, a little bit better than that. With dual analog controls, so you can play it on portable mode and, normal docked mode, right? And, of course, it still has the Joy-Con controls if you want to mimic the Wii motion controls. So it has those two control options. You have all three different difficulty settings available right from the get-go. And in each game, they add one additional boss fight. And if you beat that boss fight, you get an additional power-up that isn't mandatory, but it's just kind of like a cool little thing, like maybe each boss fight gives you like a different kind of melee attack that could perhaps be a hint to the kind of design choices they have for Metroid Prime 4, where they want to add a melee attack and make it more fluid. How cool would that be, right? So maybe Prime 1, they have a Kraid fight somewhere in Magmore Caverns. Maybe Prime 2, I don't know what the hell it would be, but you know what I mean. And then Prime 3 is something else. Like, that's it. That's what I want. You can even scrap the multiplayer. Some people might hate that. I think they probably should get the multiplayer, but I would.
It wouldn't be far off. I mean, we've seen in Zelda we got different dungeons and different things like that. So, I mean, a boss fight per game isn't too hard to expect. And I imagine this will be a full $60. Like, Twilight Princess was $60, but it came with Amiibo, so it was kind of cheaper if you looked at it that way. But I think this one would be a full $60. So I think, all three games, and they could add a boss fight at least. They have to add some,
but will they?
I don't think they'll come out and not add any content. They haven't done that for any of their remakes. One of their remakes just doesn't have anything.
Well, technically, Metroid Prime Trilogy is a remake.
What?
Technically, it's more like a remaster.
Metroid Prime Trilogy was...
It itself is like a remaster,
Yeah, it was like marginal improvements.
They did improve the graphics, although Metroid Prime 1 and 2 were missing some of the like aesthetic effects. Like for example, when you were to shoot the gun, you wouldn't be able to see like the in Metroid Prime, the GameCube version, when you would shoot your gun really fast, you could see like heat fumes. I think that was little effects like that around the actual arm cannon were kind of taken away in the Wii version. I think it had something to do with like moving around and stuff. I'm not sure what, but
I wonder, it probably had something to do with the way the GameCube rendered the effects. So the weird thing about old consoles, they had all these like strange processors that have like special things to render certain effects. It's really weird if you go and look at retro hardware. Like there's just things that older consoles do that the next generation just couldn't, because it just didn't have that certain specific modification that the GameCube had.
I would imagine they would bring those effects back.
Yeah,
because I noticed them. I was very sad about that.
Yeah.
I think even like the water effects were like they lacked like less physics or something in the trilogy. It was weird. So I hope like little things like that come back and maybe are enhanced. Like, you know, I want all those additional little effects, like those particle effects, those reflections, those ripples, the fumes.
Yeah, I mean, they could add screen space reflections. That'd be really good. So those would be nice, and they wouldn't be super hard to implement. So there's ways that they could do it. Will they? I don't know. This is Nintendo.
Yeah.
They're not to go above and beyond with their remakes and remasters.
No,
so.
I don't know. It's like I like how you brought up how Metroid Samus Returns is a remake. It's a fully like that's the kind of remake I want. I just didn't want it on 3DS.
Exactly. I really wanted to praise that, except it wasn't on the Switch. If that was on the Switch, I think it would have sold way better than it did. But it didn't sell well at all.
So, I didn't mean to bring it up and have it be a good segue, but I think it kind of is. There are rumors of a 2D Metroid as well. Well, okay. I'm assuming 2D Metroid. I feel like it's a safe bet, right? But there's a rumor of other Metroid in the works besides Prime Trilogy HD and Prime 4. Fill in the gap. It's 2D Metroid, especially because Mercury Steam, the developer for Metroid Samus Returns, did just a good job. We did hear that they might be reused again to make another Metroid game. They even said that they want to make another Metroid game. It wasn't confirmed that they were going to just jump straight into another one, but that there's a desire there. So what if that team, the Mercury Steam team, along with they move over to the Switch and they make another 2D style Metroid game, but on the Switch. And then the remake for Metroid Samus Returns was the testing grounds, and now that they've proven themselves, now we're actually gonna see a new 2D Metroid. I don't think they're gonna have another remake in a row. Like, think about it: Metroid Samus Returns remake, then Prime Trilogy HD, then another 2D remake. I mean, seeing a Zero Mission or Fusion remake on the Switch would be amazing, but I think it's better for them to just make a whole new Metroid game, which would also be amazing. So my kind of speculation right now is that hopefully Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, they're not gonna like hold it off for a year or two because like, oh, we wanted to space it out, but maybe what they can do is that they have Prime Trilogy come out this year, next year is the 2D Metroid game, and then God willing, even though probably not, Metroid Prime 4 is available holiday 2021. Probably not the case though. I'm saying probably not the case. You think it's possible.
I just think
it's possible. I just don't think it's likely. I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to get too hyped up about it being 2021. Just like immediately after this heartbreak, like I don't want to.
There's too many variables.
There really
because
is.
If the variables are right and the stars are aligned with what the problems were, then 2021 would be very possible. But if there were other things that were wrong and certain things went other ways, then it's very possible that 2021 is not possible. Thing is, we just don't know what happened. If we knew what happened, we could say. But at this point, we don't know what happened. We don't know what their next vision is. We don't know what their previous vision was. We don't know what their new vision is. We know nothing. We're in the dark here.
So, I do want to say this, though. Metroid Prime was made in 2 years. The original Metroid Prime was made in 2 years. Metroid Prime 2 was made in 2 years. And Metroid Prime 3 was made in 3 years. That was a while ago. Games have a much bigger scope now. They tend to take a little bit longer. So, maybe 3 or 4 years. But one of the reasons why Metroid Prime was so fast is because they were working on different game engines, so they kind of like adapted a game engine they already had. So that expedited the development process quite a bit, which is why it took 2 years. What brought up earlier, there was this demo that Retro Studios had They've been silent for years. There have been rumors of an exploratory project that may have been canceled or whatever, that they're working on different technologies for the NX or the Switch. What if they have been developing their own super crazy revolutionary engine like Breath of the Wild engine? What if that's what they've been working on, and they showed off Metroid Prime 4 on the engine? Like,
it's very possible.
If that's the case, and this is all speculation, guys, I really don't want to, like, excite people about the possibility, but I mean, it's exciting, but it's only a possibility. It's not necessarily a likelihood, so definitely take it with a grain of salt. But if they had this engine, you know, obviously, you know, it would still probably need to be worked on and enhanced and polished up for Metroid Prime 4 and the Switch and such, but it would give them a good starting point to kind of just hit the ground running. And taking that on top of maybe at least the ideas and concepts that are already established with the previous development cycle, that could
like Metroid Prime 4 it got restarted. But that doesn't mean they didn't learn a lot from what they had worked on. And it's very possible that now that they've canceled that, they know exactly what they want to do. Because usually when you start a game, the first like 6 months to a year is just experiments. It's just figuring out things. It's just working with your engine, working on getting the style right, getting everything, the physics right, and all that kind of stuff for a long time. But, you know, they've probably got most of the experiments out of the way. So it's very possible that they just go ham on developing. They're like, okay, we know what we went wrong. We know what we want now. We know how to do it, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think it's possible. So when we see when they say restart might not mean, hey, just assume that, like, for example, it's not like, for example, day one of Legend of Zelda to final day of Legend of Zelda. Like, I don't think it's like that, because there is all of the, at least the stories and the concepts, like, that is probably mostly established already. Although they might have to rethink how they're going to do it, too, though. So maybe there is still a lot of experimentation to do. But the point is, there's at least hope that that is all expedited, right?
That's why I'm saying, like, 2021 is possible. Because if they have all that expedited, then I don't think 3 years is too long. However, if they're like, okay, you know, the story was the gameplay was none of our concept work, we're going back to the drawing board, we don't even really completely know what we want to do anymore, then 2021 is probably not happening. They're going to at least 2022. But if they have an idea of what they're doing, and they're just like, okay, let's go and make this game, then I think 3 years is plenty of time. Yeah,
it's possible. So, assuming, let's just say best case scenario is 2021, but let's not bank on it. Let's maybe expect 2022, right? But if it happens in 2021, we're like, oh, okay, thank God. But, you know, and if assuming best case scenario, we get Metroid Prime Trilogy HD this year, and it doesn't suck. It's not just a cheap port, but I think it might be. And then 2D Metroid next year, and it's not like a 3DS port. It's like a legitimate 2D Metroid made for the Switch.
Right.
And actually 2.5D, because I imagine they would use the same graphical style of Samus Returns, but, you know, obviously...
Samus Returns holds up pretty damn well in Citra.
Imagine if it was made with an actual HD console with textures and polygon counts of a system and not a calculator. Like
God, yes.
Yeah. Like, how much more powerful is the Switch than the 3DS? Like, can you give me like a number? Like, is it like 100 times more powerful?
I think I calculated before. It was like 300 times. It's ridiculous.
So imagine Samus Returns with 300 times better graphics. Yeah, which, by the way, 300 times better graphics doesn't. It's weird how that kind of turns out, because like you could have the polygon count of current games and they'll still look basically the same. Just maybe you guys should look up like polygon counts and like how that all works. But still, it's an incredible jump. So 2D Metroid, if that happens next year, that would be hype as hell. So and that would mean 2019 you got your Prime Trilogy, 2020 you got your 2D Metroid. And then 2021, you still have Prime 4. That's a best case scenario, though. I think that's a best case scenario. Maybe they have another Metroid game come out. I mean, they could skip a year, but I think the Nintendo kind of wants to, you know, have like a hype cycle. You know, like maybe they don't want people to forget about Metroid. They could just skip a year and come out. That could still happen. But I feel like it's safe to say, regardless of when Prime 4 comes out, whether it's 2022, heck, some people even think 2023 might be an option. I don't know.
I don't.
I don't know. I don't know about that, but I'm just saying, like, whenever that happens, that happens. But I think 2D Metroid next year is okay, is reasonable, and Prime Trilogy this year. So, like, at least Metroid fans have that to look forward to, right? So we can get the 2D Metroid, we can get Prime Trilogy HD within the next, between 2019 and 2020. That's okay. That'll hold us over for a little bit, and then we may have to. But there may be a year of no Metroid, which that's normal.
Something I just saw interesting in the chat. Glitchy Games says that the Tropical Freeze is using the Prime's engine, and he sent a link, and it's Kensei Tanami said that it was using the Prime engine. So apparently they just use the same engine and just upgraded every
What the hell would they've been doing this whole time?
Upgrading, that's what they've been working on. Upgrading that engine.
Stop. No, this makes no sense.
I think they've been working on... I think that they had a game, they canceled it. Now they've been working on Star Fox Grand Prix.
I've canceled like 2 or 3 games, man.
Yeah. How long?
Let's look up Retro Studios. I just kind of want to talk about the games that they come out with, because they helped out with Mario Kart 7 on the DS, right? They took up. I think they helped to develop like half the tracks or something. They've done so little, man. Like, I understand they're not the biggest studio out there, but look, can I screen share? Yeah, I know how I can screen share pretty quickly. I just move this tab over. You can see it. I don't know if you're looking at the stream. You could probably see it. I'm assuming you can see it. Brandon, can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, I was reading in the chat. I thought you were talking to the audience, actually.
Oh, well, can you see it? You can see it. I know you can. I know you can. Okay. Anyway, just kind of look. I'm just on the Wikipedia page, right? Prime 1, 2002, right? I said 2001 earlier. That was my mistake. But Prime 2 Echoes, 2004, 2007. So 2 years, 3 years. Then Prime Trilogy. That is not even a remake. That's 3. They took these 3 games that they made and then they put them together with some minor enhancements.
Like dilute them together.
Of course, I know there's a lot you have to do with in terms of making the controls work for Prime 1 and 2. I understand that, but it took them 2 years to just put 3 games into one package with minor enhancements and different controls. So I'm just saying, like, okay. What else are you working on? They were working on Donkey Kong Country Returns, right? It wasn't just Trilogy they were working on in between 2007 and 2010. They were also developing Donkey Kong Country Returns. Okay, so that's fair. I think that's okay output. They were doing these 2 things. Then 2011, they helped out with Mario Kart 7. Okay. Then we saw Donkey Kong Returns 3D, which is also literally nothing. They've just scaled down a game to the 3DS. So 3 years later, they scaled down a game. And
poured the game to 3DS, what they did.
So basically, they helped out with a lot of tracks in Mario Kart 7, but in terms of a full-on game, between 2010 and 2014, so you're saying Tropical Freeze is still running on the Prime engine?
Yeah. I assume they're going to be using this engine for everything.
Why?
They just upgrade it, honestly. I mean, Unreal Engine 4 is technically the same as Unreal Engine. It's just better.
I'm exiting this.
So, a lot of companies do that. A lot of games are based off. And it's not like Bethesda where they just try to use the same absolute piece of shit engine and just like barely slap some code onto it and be like, work, please work. And it doesn't. Like, this is an engine that was already like an amazing engine. Like, the Prime engine is just a godsend of an engine, and they've been upgrading it ever since.
You want to know what's a godsend of a technical, like a huge, incredible system that was, and I think was an incredible accomplishment with technology back in 2001? The Nintendo GameCube. And what they used the same CPU just 3 times over on the Wii U.
Yeah, that was not smart.
I'm just saying, like, it's old. It's old. Yes, you can look. You can enhance it like crazy, but like, for example, people are complaining about Elder Scrolls. Like, supposedly the next Elder Scrolls is using the same engine as Skyrim, which they've been using for such a long time.
Fallout 76 used it, which is why it's such crap, because they barely optimized that engine. There are engines though that companies have used for a long time that work really, really well. There's like the RE engine is a better engine. It's like the Resident Evil engine. They've been upgrading that for a long time.
Okay.
There's a lot of other engines like that, like Frostbite. Unreal. Unreal is an engine that they've been working on. It's still Unreal Engine.
So I guess my complaint isn't that they're using the same engine. It's just that if they're using the same engine and just enhancing it, why is it taking them so long to make all these different games? I have to imagine that it's just because they've tried so many other projects, they've had so many issues that they haven't really, been able to come out with that much. But what if...
I think they had a failed game or two.
And
then I think they've had a failed game or two, and now they're working on Star Fox Grand Prix, and now they just started Metroid Prime 4.
Right.
So they
do you think they're going to use the same Prime engine from 2002?
It's possible that they could.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I want to say no, but then again, I didn't realize, I forgot about the whole Tropical Freeze thing.
Freeze, that was in 2014. So.
Right. Their output has been slow.
Like it was from a 2002 for sure.
But you know what? What really matters is just how the games look and play. It doesn't matter what engine they use. The only reason I even talk about that is just because I imagine if they're using the same engine, that just gives them, they have more time to make a game. They can get it done faster.
They say it's the same engine, but that doesn't mean they completely recoded like 10 times.
Right, it's been enhanced and fortified and all that jazz. Like it's not the same engine, right? It's based on the same engine.
Barely the same as it was back in 2.
Right. I want to catch up on the chat because I know a lot of you guys have been talking. So let me kind of see if I can catch up here. I can't really speak to Knack because I've never played Knack. Sorry, guys.
Isn't Knack like a meme? That's like one of those meme games.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think too many people cared that much about it. Jugs Mickey saying, remember when there were reports that Metroid Prime 4 was being developed by Namco Bandai? I think they were.
Yeah,
it hasn't been confirmed yet, but the reports further support that it was Namco Bandai Namco. Like the fact that they were supposedly being developed by multiple studios in different countries, that's full support of the idea that there were different Namco Bandai studios in different places, like in Singapore and in Tokyo. So it's kind of more supported now, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Sam is asking he wants my quick thoughts on Dragon Ball Project Z. It looks really cool. I saw the trailer. I don't know that much about the game, but hey, man, I love the Dragon Ball story. It looked good, so I'm waiting to see more on that. It's exciting.
Oh god, not a scroll says the prophecy is foretold that Pikmin 4 was almost done back in 1996.
Not a scroll. You may be onto something. I just think Nintendo's holding that project off for when they want to have it come out. I think they're just spacing out the releases. I think they have a lot of things on the shelf, like Prime Trilogy HD.
I honestly think that they've switched engines or heavily optimized it for the Switch because the Wii U engines don't work well on the Switch at all, as we can see with like things like Breath of the Wild like running terribly when it first came out and stuff.
Do you think Pikmin 4? Do you think that was even developed for the Wii U? Like maybe from the get-go they planned that for.
I think it was developed for the Wii U. Didn't they say it was almost done like 2015? Like Switch didn't come out until 2017.
You know what? Maybe it makes more sense that way. Yeah, right. They probably started development for Pikmin 4 after Pikmin 3 and realized that, hey, the Wii is a failure. Let's hold this off for the next system.
I think they redid a lot of it. I think they added a lot to it, remade a lot of things for the Switch. There's a lot more power in the Switch. They can do a lot more graphically. They probably just completely took what they had as a base and just have been working on it. And they probably are done by now, and they're holding it off. But I think they have been working on it since they said it was almost done.
Yeah. I imagine that at this point, though, they're not like in full development. Like it's minor stuff.
No, I think they're pretty much done at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I think they have been working on it for the past few years.
Okay. Let me see.
There's no reason not to release it last year, to be honest. There's so many openings in that last year release schedule.
Yeah, so I see Darcy. What would you guys think? I don't think this will happen, by the way. If for the next Pokemon game, the 3 star types are Psychic, Fighting, Dark, Triangle, as opposed to the usual Fire, Water, Grass triangle. Well, this is obviously a tangent, but for Generation 6, there were dual types. So there was Delphox, which was Fire Psychic. Greninja was water dark, and then Chestnut was grass fighting. So they kind of had that idea. I understand you mean like just like the initial type. I saw a video on that recently actually too. To be frank with you, I feel like they're just going to stick with fire, water, grass, but maybe they mix it up with another weird dual typing.
If they had 4 starters, that'd be interesting.
It
like
would be
one of them's like fairy or something.
It'd be unprecedented.
Yeah, but I think the next Pokemon game is going to be unprecedented in many ways. So
true.
Possible.
They may make some serious changes. That is a possibility. So you never really know. So Glitchy Game's asking, if the trilogy remaster comes out, do you think Amiibo will be utilized? Also, what if they coincide the trilogy release with the Dark Samus Amiibo? Interesting.
What is the Dark Samus Amiibo going on? Do you know?
Well, what?
Do you know when the Dark Samus Amiibo?
I do not care about Amiibo dates. I don't follow it. If I see a cool Amiibo, I buy it. That's pretty much it.
I like my Ridley Amiibo, my friend. Is amazing. Look at it in all its glory.
I saw it at Best Buy the other day. I screamed, but because
it
I was
is
on a budget,
literally
I decided
like
to buy
the
it.
most detailed Amiibo I've ever seen. Like
It's
the
so
new
good.
Amiibos, the Smash Ultimate Amiibos are amazing. Like they're insane.
Yeah, no, it looks really cool. For sure. I'm still a big fan of that Metroid Amiibo that came out with Samus Returns. I think it's really special.
Yeah, that one's good. Wish I had gotten that. one.
But to go back to the question though, I think maybe I could see them like, because in Prime Trilogy there's like an achievement system. I could see maybe, and the achievement system allows you to see like different like concept art and stuff that you can see can unlock that. I could see the Amiibo unlocking that kind of thing. Maybe they even use the Amiibo to unlock another special difficulty mode. That they did that in Twilight Princess HD. They did that in Samus Returns. So it wouldn't shock me if they do that again. That's possible. Sabbath, 100% agree. F-Zero needs to come back. I don't know when it's going to happen, though. So, I'm just going to wait patiently on that one. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Darcy's asking, do Retro employees work for any other developers beyond Retro? Because surely there would be something they're contracted to work on if they wanted to begin. Well, Retro Studios is wholly owned by Nintendo now. They're full-on Nintendo company, so unless Nintendo has some sort of partnership with another company, they're working to, it's all there. Retro Studios is just working for Nintendo.
Yeah, they're a second-party studio now.
Yeah. Really, DeHawk is saying he really hopes that Prime 4 features playable Zero Suit. I would love to especially see Zero Suit Samus fight Ridley in Prime 4. Do you think she could pull it off? What is the percent ratio of win-fail? So, for those who don't know, Zero Suit Samus is when she's in the... You can see her face, like she's just in the skin-tight blue form you see in Smash Brothers with the lasso gun. Ridley would tear her apart.
Destroyed, just wrecked.
Like, would tear her apart. Her only advantage is that she's a lot smaller, so she might be able to be harder to hit, and she can like kind of get under him and stuff like that. Maybe.
Not really as powerful in that form, though. She doesn't have her arm cannon and missiles and such.
Technically, if we go, by canon and stuff, like Samus is supposed to be pretty fast and powerful in her actual suit,
really
right?
Fast
but because of the I would hope. But by the way the design looks, at least for the Prime game, she looks kind of tanky and slow. She's not supposed to be tanky and slow. She's supposed to be very acrobatic and agile and just a quick and powerful like character. But the way she's portrayed in Smash Brothers is a little different than how some people would argue she's supposed to be. But hey, Samus always has a shot. She's number one no matter what. I would say I don't know if I could put a percentage on, but Ridley would definitely have an advantage over Samus without her suit.
Oh yeah.
But she still has a shot. She just needs to find that opening. Yeah. But let's what have we not covered? Because I know there's a lot to talk about. So in terms of Retro Studios, right? We agree that they're not really that big of a developer, right? And they've tried multiple projects, and some of them are probably canceled. Hence the 5-year silence. They may have been experimenting with some stuff. Maybe it's not a new engine that they're working on, but they've just been enhancing their old Prime engine to be this incredible engine now. Maybe that's a possibility. Personally, I think the Star Fox Grand Prix rumors are true.
Oh yeah.
But there is a rumor, I think, just to cover both sides, there is a rumor, or there was a rumor that a project was scrapped. Maybe Star Fox was scrapped, and there's something else that they're coming out with. And people kind of want them to make a Donkey Kong game. You and I both speculated, it was like a year ago, but we both speculated that maybe we could see a 3D Donkey Kong game. And now that King K. Rool has been brought back in Smash Bros., what if Retro Studios comes out with a 3D Donkey Kong game and has King K. Rool?
Dude.
That would be epic.
So cool.
Right? I would love that so much. But I'm going to still think the Star Fox Grand Prix is real, because I think if there was actually, if it was coming from Eurogamer and different sources were corroborating it, like IGN, I feel like it's because that game is so far into development that there's no way it's not coming out, right? Like there was even like actual promotional material that leaked out, like that. To me, suggests that game is almost done. I think it was finished last year and it's been shelved, just like probably Pikmin 4, just like the reports that suggest Prime Trilogy HD's been done for a while already. Just like the rumor for New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, I think it's been shelved because Nintendo has had so many games kind of ready because they have all these ports. Yeah, I think it's just kind of waiting. And Retro Studios, the reason why Retro Studios is only now taking up Metroid Prime 4 is because now they're free. They're done with developing stuff. They've picked up a lot of talent over the years. I think now whatever team they have now is really good, ready to take on this project, and they proved it when they showed off that gameplay demo or whatever kind of demo, proof of concept demo to Nintendo. That's where I'm kind of on. That's what my stance is right now.
Something I just thought of, it'd be interesting if, maybe Metroid Prime Trilogy HD was supposed to come out early this year, but maybe it's coming out on the holiday. Instead of just delaying it, I wonder if they'll do anything extra in that time in order to improve it, because maybe they were like, oh, we need this to be better than what we thought, because we need it to fill in that gap for Metroid Prime 4 and keep fans happy, instead of just like this little like, oh look, here's a surprise.
Well, how much?
It's like, oh no, this is all we have.
I've thought about this too, but I'm just gonna ask the question though: how much can you change if it's still? If you mean like so, instead of it being first half of 2019, like what the rumor suggests, and it becomes holiday 2019, is that what you're suggesting? And within that 6-month time span, I guess that 6-month delay, they just enhance the game. Yeah, I thought about that too. It's just how much can they enhance it, though?
I mean, it is a pretty old game, so any enhancements would be really appreciated. So the amount of work, like when you have like a really big budget game, there's a lot of effects and a lot going on. You add another effect, and it's just another effect in the mix of effects. But when you have an old game that was originally on the freaking GameCube, you add effect, and it's like, oh look, an effect. So I don't think they'd have to, like, the amount that they have to improve is less than a brand new game, because there's just not a bunch technically going on. So I don't think they could add a few things. I'm not saying like in the 6 to 9 months in between delay that it could have had is gonna be like revolutionary and it's gonna be like this Unreal Engine 4 thing. No, I'm just saying like, yeah, maybe they could add some more lighting effects or some particle effects or change up some things a little bit, because honestly, even a small improvement based off a game that old would be like, you'd notice. I
mean, like, let's say you're right, or that's the best case scenario, they do delay it for like a holiday game, but they enhance it. What can they do in 6 months? So let's assume, I don't know if this is true, right? But let's assume that Prime Trilogy initially was supposed to come out like February, right? Let's say my dumbass prediction was right, and then Prime 4 is coming out in December. And the reason that made sense is because Prime Trilogy was just basically a minor enhancement. Like, it was basically the game running on Dolphin with dual analog controls. And motion controls. Like, that's all they did, right? But now that they have to delay Prime 4, like, oh, okay, let's do what you're saying. Like, as you said, Brandon, they just move it over to holiday season, but, like, let's take these next 6 months to enhance the game a little bit, which is why we haven't heard about it yet, right? Which is why they didn't show it off when Shinya Takahashi, like, the thing is, it would have made sense to announce the Prime Trilogy it like not like maybe Nintendo doesn't do it. Maybe whatever they have shelved, they just announce it this week or sometime next month or within the next couple of months anyway. But I think there's a possibility, like you're saying, that they do hold it off a little bit, and maybe that's why they haven't showed it off yet, because they're reworking a little bit so it can come out later on and be at least something a bit more extensive for Metroid fans. So maybe, you know, they enhance the graphics a little bit more, like you said. Maybe they add those boss fights I was talking about, right? They add additional boss fights to each one, and maybe they take that Prime 2 multiplayer and they just polish it up a little bit. Like, I'm not asking for more maps or anything like that, but people have had complaints about that multiplayer. Maybe they could just do some quality of life changes that make it a bit more fun for people, and that would be a pretty good package. I think that would be amazing. But again, I feel like Nintendo probably is just going to have a game that's basically better textures, slightly better lighting, up-res to 1080p with dual analog controls and motion controls. Like that's what I'm expecting for Prime Trilogy HD, regardless.
Which I still think will hold up really well.
Yeah, it'll look
just
good.
Because that art style, you throw it up in Dolphin normally, and that art style holds up really well. So having the HD textures and maybe some better lighting, better shadowing definitely is something that they could do that's really easy. And, you know, shadows and lighting, just as I said, they add so much in terms of just ambiance and just environmental. What's the word? What do you know what the word I'm talking about? You know, like you get sucked into a game. What is that?
Immersion.
It'd be more immersive, in the way that it looks. So that would just lighting and shadows would help with that just immensely. Especially they can make a lot more lighting effects. To, you know, every light can be actually like cast onto the environment, and they could add 3D fog and stuff. Like there's easy things that they could do.
There's another thing they could do. They could scrap Metroid Prime Trilogy HD and just release each individual game enhanced, one for every year.
Ugh. Don't say these things. This is bad.
It's a bad idea.
Each $60. Oh my god, what if?
Yeah, that would be bad. I would agree. That would be bad.
That would suck.
I think people would then get kind of fatigued.
People would be upset.
Yeah.
Tell you what.
I don't think that'd work. I think it should definitely stay as a trilogy package. Either a trilogy package or they scrap it and they just completely remake the original Metroid Prime.
Yeah, the only way I can see them releasing them individually or just the one is if they remake it, like complete from the ground up remake.
With the Kraid fight.
Yes, with the Kraid fight.
With the Kraid fight. I think it's probably safe to say the Prime Trilogy is still happening. They need to have something Metroid this year to tide over fans. It's possible that they hold it off for a little while longer. Maybe they delay it a whole year. And then Prime Trilogy comes out next year and it has even more enhancements. Right. You know, because what if... I
said it's possible.
It's possible. But the reports are that Prime Trilogy has been done. It's still probably coming out this year. I believe it. I think it's coming out this year. And I think a 2D Metroid's probably going to come out next year. And Prime 4, whenever it happens, it happens. Yeah, pretty much. Is there anything else we need to cover? You agree that the Star Fox Grand Prix is real, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
think it's definitely real.
Think it's coming out, or is it scrapped?
Oh, I think it's coming out. I don't think there's any way they scrapped that game.
Okay. And do you agree with me that the reason it wasn't showed off last year is simply because of Starlink and the Star Fox content?
I think it's very possible. They don't want to have two games promoting the same IP.
Okay. All right. So then we're on page with like everything then pretty much. Well, I guess the last thing we could talk about is just kind of like what they could do for Metroid Prime. Like, what changes could we see, right? Like, I have a feeling that a retro-developed Metroid Prime won't have multiplayer.
Yeah, probably not.
Like, I feel like they had kind of like a different idea for Metroid Prime 4. I feel like they're gonna just focus on like this epic single-player adventure instead.
Yeah, I think so as well. That might have been one of the things that they didn't like, is maybe they were focusing too much on multiplayer and the single player was just kind of
Yeah, that could be the case. So then I kind of expect that. I do still believe that this Samus will be a bit faster paced. I do think
I really hope so.
that she'll have a melee attack. Kensuke Tanabe, was it Kensuke Tanabe? Someone said Kensuke, from the Maven of the Game Swing guys, I don't know if they're right, but they did put in the melee attack in Samus Returns. I feel like that's an idea of what direction they're going to be heading in. I think a melee attack for Metroid Prime makes sense. So I think adding a melee attack at least kind of speeds things up a little bit. I think dual analog controls definitely makes sense. That would help. I mean, Prime Trilogy was definitely faster than the original Metroid Prime because the motion controls were a lot faster. I wouldn't even say the game is easier with the motion controls because, for example, I was playing through Metroid Prime on the GameCube, and
you realize how clunky controls were?
Yes, it's a little different, but also, like for example, I was fighting Flagra, and you can't. You have to stun Flagra because Flagra has there's these different like lights that are shining on him that keeping him in support. He's like a giant flower creature, and the sunlight or UV rays are powering him, so you have to knock them out. But when you knock it out, if he's not stunned, he just pushes them back into power, right? So they can support him. So you have to stun him. The problem is, like, you can lock onto him, but you're actually locking onto like his trunk and not his face. In the Prime Trilogy, it's easier to just aim at his face and be locked onto him. You can aim and lock on separately, and by doing that, you can stun him a lot quicker and easier, and still strafe very quickly around. So I can kind of see. I mean, it's easier. It is. It's just it's easier.
A lot
of
weird things like that where there just be like issues with the controls, and you're just like, why can't I just use the right stick? Yeah, I found that most of the time it worked fine, but there were just some issues, especially with the boss fights, where you had to be really quick, and there was just more steps with the game controls that you had to take to get things done.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess like one of the things that I would think about is, first of all, I want them to go back to the beams, having the multiple beams. I really did not. There were some design aspects of Prime 3 that I didn't like. I didn't like that they simplified the beam system. That was a big disappointment for me. I loved switching between the beams and kind of like using what they were effective for different scenarios. They had different effects. I want that to come back. Taking that away, I felt like kind of simplified the gameplay, but not for the better.
Okay.
How do you feel about that, actually?
I mean, the beams were there. I never thought they were great. Kind of felt annoying sometimes when I needed to switch. Sometimes it felt annoying, but most of the time it was fine. I never really liked them a lot, but I didn't ever feel that they were annoying for most of it. But it was some parts of it I recall, and it's been a while since I played it, but I recall having issues sometimes having to switch, especially with doors. Having to switch to another beam just to go through a door and switch right back was really annoying if I had already been through it. Like, that was kind of dumb. Like, because I've already unlocked this door. I have the power up necessary to unlock. I understand that beams are kind of like keys in some senses. But just let me use another beam if I've already locked it. Like, I don't want to have to switch every time. I remember that.
So if I remember correctly, in Samus Returns, they had the different kind of doors. I could be remembering it wrong, but once you destroyed it... No, I don't know. I don't remember exactly how Samus Returns played out, but I want to remember, I could be remembering wrong, that once you destroyed it with a particular power-up, it's just a normal door after that. Even if I'm remembering it wrong, I probably am, that's what they should do. Like what you said. Like, once you break it, it's like something that you have to like break through with that type of beam or beam combination. Once you do it the first time, then it just becomes a normal door. I agree with that. That would make things simpler.
Yeah, other than that, I felt it was cool. You could experiment a lot, like what kills what enemy the quickest and what's effective against what. It was fun, other than the door situation.
I would like that combination, like combining beam. Like, it would be cool if you could do that. So I want them to come back with that. But the problem is that I felt like with the C stick on the GameCube, you could switch beams very quickly, and on the Wii, you had like the motion control thing, which is it made it a little wonkier, but it was better on the GameCube with the C stick.
Yeah, didn't you have to like hit a button and then move it?
Yeah, not as good.
Not slower.
In terms of switching beams. which is
Yeah.
probably one of the reasons why they decided to change that in Prime 3, because it's probably just quicker to have it all in one beam. That may have kind of led to that decision. So, actually, let me see what Solomon is saying. So he's saying, why wouldn't they just give you an option to combine all of them or use them separately? Well, if the thing is, like, it kind of like changes the gameplay a lot. It'd be weird to.
If you can combine all of them, what's the point of using them separately? So.
Yeah, if they just all do the same thing. I guess what they would need to make sure they do is that they would need to make sure that switching beams has a purpose, right? Like,
there is more buttons on a Switch controller than a Wii remote. So I imagine they've used like maybe a shoulder button and something to quickly just press through.
Right, like for example, some of you are gonna be like, "Oh, how dare you mention that?" But like in Fortnite, you scroll between weapons, L, the two shoulder buttons like that. Something as simple as that could work. They don't even have to have 4 beams; it could just be 3 or something. They don't have. I just like the ability to switch beams and have different combinations in that way, and how they can have different effects. Like I love how the wave beam, it was like an electrical kind of attack, right? And you could track enemies with it. I would love it if they have different beams, that each beam can kind of be upgraded. Like, it'd be cool if they were to take that idea further and expand upon each one. So imagine, with the wave beam, you power it up and eventually it gains better tracking abilities. Maybe eventually you could use it to electrocute or power up things, which is effects it already had, but imagine if they were to expand upon that, right? Like in Prime 3, with the plasma beam, you can get a power up where you can zoom in into like different like broken up machinery and use it to weld things back together. Like that would be an interesting power up to stack on top of the normal plasma beam. Or like cool things like that would be neat to see. One of the things that they kind of did they upgraded the missiles in Prime 3, like you could turn them into ice missiles, which is kind of a cool little thing. So if they no longer have an ice beam, I guess having ice missiles would be kind of like a way to make up for that. There's so many options they can kind of do with that, but personally, I love the idea of having 3 or 4 different beam combinations and maybe finding ways to combine them together through different power-up attacks, or have each of them kind of upgrade on their own throughout the game, so they have different abilities like homing and welding and things like that, like they've shown off beforehand. I would love that, and maybe just scrolling them would work with 2 different shoulder buttons. That way, you could use the right actual analog stick for just aiming, because that's pretty important.
Yeah, I feel like in this day and age, like it also helps so much with like platforming and stuff. Just being able to platform and move around the camera really quickly just makes it so much faster, because it's kind of like in the GameCube it's really clunky to platform, because you have to like jump, get on a platform, stop, move.
Here's a really weird idea. Here's a really weird idea. I'm not sure if you guys would like it or not. But where's my Pro controller? All right. So, what if, right, so like you have 4 shoulder buttons. One's lock on, right? Maybe one shoulder button's missiles, other one's map, and another one is run or something, and then you press on the stick to go to morph ball, you move with this one. I guess one of the analogs could be jump, and the D-pad still scans, but then all the face buttons, each face button's just a different beam. So that way, whenever you press that button, plasma, wave, ice, power, like you can just do that. Like every button press is a different beam attack. Think of how about interesting that could be. It'd be interesting, right? And it'd be fast, because every time you press it, like that's the attack. It's just like boom, like you're just switching every time you press. Like there's like that's, I don't know, just an idea I had. I kind of like the idea of that, and because you have L3, R3, 4 shoulder buttons on the D-pad, there's more than enough buttons to do everything else, I think.
It is weird not having the trigger as the trigger, though. It just feel weird, like against instincts, but I think you get used to it. I wonder if the triggers for the 4 beams instead and had the face buttons do the other things might make more sense.
Well, then where's the lock on and strafing and?
I mean, you have them the face buttons. Like instead of having the shoulder buttons for those, have the shoulder buttons.
I know you like the idea of the triggers being the shooting, but every Prime game didn't use a trigger. All the Prime games wasn't based off triggers. There was all the A button.
Right.
Every time. Even on the Wii, the B button was jump. And the A button The B button was the
Weird.
trigger on the Wii, and the A button was the beam attack. They've never. So I'm just saying, like, none
Right,
of the
yeah,
Prime
they
games
might-
use
yeah.
triggers for shooting ever. So they
Mhm.
might do it this time, I guess, but I feel like because of the way
It's
it
very-
is, like, you have to press the buttons very quickly, and I feel like pressing face buttons is I don't know. It's
Well, it depends on the
different.
like the Switch triggers are pretty much the same as a button
Mhm.
because they're not analog. But yeah, an analog trigger would be different.
Yeah, it'll be different for sure. Anyway, just an idea. I love the idea. Just think about it one more time, guys. Imagine if you had power beam, wave beam, ice beam, plasma beam, and they all create different effects on enemies. And imagine mixing up those effects. Like when you burn an enemy, what happens to them once they're burned? You throw electricity on them, right? Or the power beam would be like the faster, the high fire rate weapon, right? And then ice beam, you freeze them down, and then you melt them. And what happens? You put fire after they're frozen, or you electrocute something once they're frozen. Maybe the water in them is already. Like there's just they can
Yeah.
really mix that up.
And then shatter them.
And on top, here's another thing though. Because in Metroid Prime, you also do missile combinations, and they already had missile combinations for each beam weapon. So imagine, being able to combine the missile. So because if a missile's a shoulder button, like that's you got missile, then four face buttons. So those are 5 different attacks you could do at any point without having to switch into anything, and then they can combine with each other if you press them at the same time. Like, imagine. So what if I were to press ice and fire at the same time? What would that do? Like, it's just an idea.
Cool.
Like they could really do some crazy stuff with that if they wanted to. I don't know what direction they're going to go with the shooting. The direction they took the shooting Prime 3 I didn't like. I was kind of against that, but I think they care more about the adventure and the exploration aspect, so they may not focus too much on combat.
Yeah.
But I just saying, man, I feel like there's a lot of potential with that, but we'll see how it turns out. They at least they did do some of those ideas. I'm just kind of expanding upon the ideas they've already kind of featured in different Prime games. But I think we can agree that they're probably going to make the game a bit faster paced. They're probably going to have gyro aiming. That's probably still going to be a thing. I think a melee attack. Do you think the melee attack's going to be added, or is that just me that thinks that?
I think it's possible. I'm interested to see how it would work in a 3D space compared to a 2D space. But I think if they can pull it off, it would be really cool. It'd be you could have a really cool dash melee attack where you speed up really fast and hit them.
Well, the shoulder bash. Imagine them just adding the shoulder bash. That'd be cool, and you could just plow through enemies that way. That'd be interesting to see. I would like that a lot, actually. That'd be cool. There's a lot of options, man. There's a lot of options because you also got to change the morph ball.
You have to take into account it's a first-person game, so some things when you're in third person don't translate as well to first person, or they are weird to control. So we don't know exactly how that would feel in a 3D space. So with the first-person perspective,
right? That's something to take into consideration as well. And Salt, I'm right there with you. I'm waiting for that 3D speed booster. The closest thing we got was in Metroid Other M. They had the speed booster there, which was in 3D but not first person. It's Other M's 2.5D kind of. I would love to see a speed booster as well. That'd be cool. I don't know, for those who don't know, the speed booster, you kind of just run, and then the jetpack behind you just powers up, and you just start blasting forward super fast. You can crash through walls, and
nice.
It's incredible. You're basically like a human rocket kind of. It's pretty cool. So it'd be nice to see something like that added as well. Even if they don't go full on with that, just at least the shoulder bash where you can kind of accelerate for a moment. That'd be interesting to see at least. So there's so many options. And obviously we're years away from seeing it, but it might be interesting to see what they do with Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, because that could give us an idea of some of the concepts they want to implement for Metroid Prime 4, right?
Right.
Initially with Wind Waker HD, that gave us an idea of what at one point they wanted to do with Breath of the Wild. Of course, they kind of scrapped those ideas because of the Switch, but at one point they did want to implement the gamepad with the map system and such, and they did use those ideas for both Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. They scrapped them because of the Switch. So, maybe for Prime Trilogy, we see some interesting mechanics or optimizations that could become staples for the Metroid Prime series moving forward.
It's possible. It would be very interesting.
Hmm.
I just don't know how much they're gonna push this HD version. So
Right, I'm right there with you. I think it's gonna be basically Metroid Prime on Dolphin with
I
dual
think it's
analog
gonna be
controls.
1080p. It's gonna have new textures, some improvements to lighting and shadows, and that's it.
Yeah. The other thing I guess to take into consideration is I feel like because of Retro Studios, the game's guaranteed to be at 60 FPS. I feel like what if one of the reasons like what if they were struggling to get the graphics to be like on par and they had to like go for 30, right? Because like if you look at games like Doom and Wolfenstein 2, like Metroid Prime 4 is gonna have a lot to measure up to. And what if this development team just wasn't able to do it using Unreal? Because what if they were using the Unreal Engine? Like, what if the only way they would be able to get a really good-looking Metroid Prime game that kind of stands above everything else on the Switch graphically and also be 60 FPS is by rolling with Retro using their own custom engine?
It's very possible, especially if they want to keep higher resolutions, because sometimes a very easy optimization in Unreal Engine 4 is just to tank the resolution and throw a bunch of anti-aliasing onto it. So I wonder if maybe that's what they were doing. They were like, hey, no, we don't want Metroid running over here at 640p and 720. Like, no, we want this game at a good, at least 900p. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. But, just for those in the chat, Joe, I see you there. Ridley, actually, let me see what the question you're asking. I like design talk as well. Do you think it really looks better with the Digitrade leg type? Digitigrade leg type.
See, I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure what that reference is for either. I feel so bad.
Like, if I knew what digitigrade meant, then maybe I could answer that. But
Digitigrade legs. It's a thing. Is it just robot legs?
so,
Oh, wait. Oh, hold on. Yeah, this is a reference. This is a real thing. It's like a human thing. A digigrade is an animal that stands on walks or digits or toes. Digigrades include walking birds. Oh, walking on toes. Okay, so like how like a dog, like they're like their foot's like this.
Mm.
You know what I mean? That's digigrade apparently.
I don't remember him doing.
Let's look at Ridley. Meta Ridley. I want to see like a picture of his legs. So I mean, if we look at Ridley from Smash, it's. I'm gonna just put the Google over here. Like when you look at it, right? It's like. There we go. This Digitigrade. There's your Digitigrade right there. There's a Digitigrade. Yeah, but Ridley's not like that, at least in Smash. It's I don't know, maybe a little. Kind of like over here it is. It's interesting. I'm not sure, man.
He says it's in Prime 3 and Samus Returns. So it's Prime 3 and Samus Returns.
Samus Returns, Ridley. Samus Returns, Diddley.
Good old Bidley.
It's kind of hard
Ridley's
to get.
cousin.
I'll have to like look at footage.
It looks like a pterodactyl.
Oh, that's like a weird GIF. I'm trying to see it.
That one above it, he looks like he's on his toes.
This one?
Yeah.
Huh. It's hard for me to see, to be honest with you.
Hard to tell.
There we go.
Looks...
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a pretty good
He's
shot
just
right
on...
there. It looks the same to me.
He does look pretty cool in that one, but I prefer his Smash design, to be honest.
Oh, I want him to. They made it look pretty creepy that way. I want them to definitely go full creepy, have like really scaly, textury designs, because like the normal Prime Ridley, right? I don't want to say like there's no texture, but it's like it looks good, but it's kind of flat, right?
I mean, he was on GameCube. It's
right.
Very flat.
It's very flat. Like I want to see like a very that's a much better shot. You see, like it's very flat. It has some reflectiveness to it, and it's interesting for sure. But imagine what they can do on Switch, right? Like with modern day textures.
Oh, another thing, I think they would fix the flame effects in this game. I think they would redo them.
Oh, that'd be nice to see. It'd be better
I
than
think
flame
they would
effects in Dark Souls.
redo the beam effects and the flame effects because they don't hold up anymore. I think they would completely redo how the lasers and stuff and all the beam shots they would all look different.
This is technically a Metroid, I'm pretty sure.
What is
Metroids
that?
That's just concept art. Not even concept art, it's fan art.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, we're gonna get off Google now. Oh, actually, like if you look some of the old concept art for Ridley, like that, you know, like if Ridley is kind of, there's a lot of detail within the concept art. Actually,
it's amiibo has so much detail, my dude. He's got scaliness and bumpiness, all kinds of stuff.
Prime 3 Ridley looks pretty good.
I don't know if you're showing that right now, but I have it again on the camera.
Well,
you guys saw it earlier. But yeah, it's got all kinds of texture and shit. Looks super good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to see a very, very detailed Ridley. But that's going to be years from now, probably. That's not something I expect for a Prime Trilogy HD, for example. Like they'll look cleaner. They're gonna look. I bet they'll look cleaner than this, but maybe not that much more cleaner. Like they're gonna be cleaner. Like I don't think they're gonna. Well, what if they do like a texture pack and they make it look?
Well, I think
scaly?
yeah, I think they would redo all the textures. So like, they would definitely look a lot sharper, more detailed. I mean, like even Twilight Princess, the design, like there's a lot more detail in the character models in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible for sure. For sure.
They don't hold up as well as Metroid Prime's because that art style just doesn't hold up as well. But the detail in it is way better.
Mm-hmm.
Like it actually looks, not crappy texture.
Mm-hmm. So, guys, we're going to be kind of ending the discussion soon. So, for any of you guys who have interesting questions or topics you want to bring them up now while we kind of close things down. I'm going to kind of check. Is there Brandon anything you want to like touch on at this point?
I think we covered pretty much everything.
I think so. But if you guys have anything you want to bring it up now, so we can close things off. Of course, if you guys bring up something really, really interesting, we'll see how things turn out. But, let me see. So Joe is saying maybe Retro never wanted to work on Metroid Prime 4, but they did agree to a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, and now they will announce it.
I don't think they never wanted to work on it because they wouldn't want to work on it now either.
No, I think Retro wants Metroid Prime 4. I think they want that. They at one point they took a break from it. But even when Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, Tropical Freeze came out or was announced, they had interviews about Metroid. Like, oh yeah, we have a lot of ideas that they want about that. This is back in the Game Awards, before the Game Awards was the Game Awards, around the Cranky Kong times. Even then, they had ideas for that.
I mean, it was as I was saying, early on in the discussion, I'm 99% certain that they have been planning and working and experimenting and demoing all kinds of Metroid stuff, even since Metroid Prime Trilogy and Metroid Prime 3 is over. Like, they have to have been. And so I definitely think that they've never stopped working on Metroid. I don't think they've been working on Metroid game necessarily, but I think they've been working with Metroid and experimenting with it the entire time.
Interesting. It's an interesting idea. And I like the idea of Retro Studios working on Metroid Prime Trilogy HD. That's conceivable. Very conceivable, actually. Because it's their baby. It'd be even if I don't know what that would entail. If it is, I hope if that would mean that they enhance it a little bit more or so than normal. But we really don't know. If it is like a basic remaster, kind of like Twilight Princess HD, it could easily be outsourced if all they're doing is adding dual analog controls, reworking the Joy-Cons to mimic the Wii motion controls, and just upping the textures a little bit. That could have been outsourced. But if they're doing a little bit more than that, I can see Retro Studios working on that, especially because it's not a full-on game. They would be able to do that alongside another game.
And Miyamoto did say that they were big enough. I think it was Miyamoto. Somebody said that Retro Studios was big enough to handle 2 projects at once.
I remember hearing that at some point too. I want to check the sources on that though. Yeah. So really, Dehaka, take care, man. Omega Metroid for Prime 4. Ooh, that'd be nice. I want to see something beyond an Omega Metroid. Take it to a whole other level. But Omega Metroid is definitely a good starting point. It could be like a. I mean, I think I should make a video about like Metroid evolutions. Like talk about the different kinds. That's a cool idea, right? Like just talking about the different like Metroid forms, and kind of maybe speculate what could happen with a Metroid, how they can change, how they can adapt, and what it could entail for the next big crazy Metroid in Prime 4. So these ideas, man, they keep coming. So now I have an idea for talking about different Metroid species and their evolution and their metamorphosis, and also another video about Metroid Prime 1.5. That's two cool ideas right there. Joe just said, also I have a theory that Nintendo wanted a Direct in early January, but because of the trouble with Metroid Prime 4, they decided to delay Direct since they were debating about Metroid Prime 4 being shown at the Direct or restarting completely. Possibility. Definitely a possibility, for sure. There's something weird because the Metroid Prime Trilogy was supposed to be revealed at the Game Awards. We don't know. I'm just hoping that this week we get a Nintendo Direct finally. Something's gotta happen sooner or later. It may not be this month, maybe, but I feel like it's about time. It's been about time for weeks though.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember when I was like really certain it was gonna be on the 10th? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was
great.
Beginning of the month.
Great time to be alive back then.
And I've been making this point, man. We don't know about any Nintendo published games coming out in the month of February. Nothing. February's starting really soon.
February, what you do?
Really soon. Yeah, maybe they just have nothing planned for February. What if Prime Trilogy was going to be a February game and they had to scrap it? They had to just...
I think they pushed it. They're pushing it back.
That makes so much sense now. Because normally Nintendo would have something. Maybe they had to just scrap Prime Trilogy for February. Maybe that's that was the initial plan.
I thought we had said that earlier in the discussion.
That was our prediction, right? But I don't think we brought it up that maybe it could have been a February game because at this point we have no knowledge of any published. There's no Nintendo published games slated for February. Nothing.
Nothing happened, my man. I don't even know.
I don't know what's going on. I feel like it's still possible. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's possible to get a Direct. It'd be nice if Prime Trilogy just came out regardless of when with Prime 4. It'd be nice because we still need we want Metroid. But if it means they're gonna enhance it a little bit and it comes out a little bit later, that's okay too. So yeah, I'm not sure. Joe's saying I think that Metroid Prime 4 will come out in 2022 because that's the 20-year anniversary of Metroid Prime.
Yeah. You would think, but these days anniversaries mean diddly squat. I mean, absolutely nothing.
I like the idea of it too.
Yeah, it's a nice idea, but developers don't follow them. They just don't.
Yeah.
Every like, oh, but maybe because, dude, anytime I see a rumor that says something's gonna happen because of an anniversary, I'm like, ha, fake news, for real. It never happens. Never.
Yeah.
It's always fake.
I mean, here's the thing. 20-year anniversary isn't... Well, of Metroid Prime. It would be 20-year anniversary of Metroid Prime, not even of the Metroid series. Like, the thing is, what happens 5 years after the 20-year anniversary? You have the 25th year anniversary. Like, it's kind of like, when you think about the development of games, like, it's almost like... These anniversary points, like, these milestones, they're not that far away from each other, so I'm not sure.
And the thing is, they don't want to delay a game or rush a game to hit an anniversary. They just don't. They're gonna, if it happens to be ready at that time, they'll release it, and if not, they won't. It doesn't have anything to do with the anniversary. It just has to do, it's just a coincidence. If it happens on an anniversary, most of the time, it's just a coincidence.
Well, like Joe's saying, Twilight Princess HD came out, I believe, 2016. So that's a 10-year anniversary, but it came out at the beginning of whatchamacallit, 2016 as opposed to the end, so it was less than 10 years technically. It's more like 9.5. Even less. Yeah, it's less than that. But I don't know.
It wasn't a brand new game though. It was just a remake or a remaster.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not impossible, but I'm not sure. So
I mean, it's possible that could happen, but I don't think it's going to happen because of the 20th year anniversary.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna. It could happen because that's when it's done. But
right, I think that's the thing. Like, if I feel like they're gonna get Metroid Prime 4 out when it's ready.
Mhm.
Like that it's when it's ready. Like that's when it's coming out, right? That
they're not going to
matters more.
delay it for the 20th anniversary, and they're not going to rush it for the 20th anniversary.
I could see them waiting a few months or something like that. Like, if they have other games to come out, sure. But if they need to satiate, like, they know Metroid Prime needs to come out ASAP, like as soon as it can come out.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, anniversaries don't help sales. Like, they don't really. You're not gonna sell better because you sold on an anniversary. You might say, "Oh, that's cool," because it markets the same. It markets the same way. It's kind of neat, but it's not gonna. Nobody's gonna buy it because it's its anniversary. It
Right.
doesn't help it sell at all. It's just a neat thing that's like, oh, that's fun. It's its anniversary. Woo.
But, well, I mean, we'll see what happens, guys. So, Brandon, closing thoughts?
Yeah. I guess. I still think 2021 is possible if the stars are aligned. But 2022 is also definitely... I think at this point, it's kind of 50-50 for me. 50-50, 2021 or 2022. That's definitely not coming earlier than that. I think Metroid Prime Trilogy HD is coming this holiday. I think we'll get a 2D game probably 2020.
Okay. I'm not sold on Prime Trilogy coming out this holiday. Maybe, but the initial plan was supposedly first half of 2019. That might still be the case, and we just, we don't know. But what I'll say is that I agree that Prime Trilogy is going to come out sometime in 2019. I'm not sure when, though. Yeah. I also think that it makes sense for 2D Metroid to come out next year, 2020. Like you, if the stars are aligned, Prime 4 could come out holiday 2021. That's the very earliest, in my opinion. Very earliest. I think what the stance I'm going to simply choose is that when it happens, it happens. I'm going to speculate about it. I'm going to hope for it, but I'm not going to... Unless more evidence comes out, and that may happen over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, but I'm not going to really... when it happens, it happens. And when it happens, I'll be happy and surprised about it. I'm just going to focus on other things. I'm going to focus on the 2D Metroid. I'm going to focus on the Prime Trilogy. I'm going to focus on other Nintendo games and stuff like that. So that's the stance I'm taking.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm also excited for whatever Retro Studios is working on, because there has to be something. And we think it's Star Fox Grand Prix. I believe that's coming out this year as well.
Right.
That's really exciting to see.
Something that I actually mentioned in my video that it's not a huge point, but something that I was thinking about is we were hoping for a Switch Pro to come out this year, or 4K dock to play Metroid on. I think this delay has kind of made it to where I don't think there's any way there won't be. I think there would definitely be some sort of enhanced hardware by then. By 2021,
going
to be enhanced hardware out.
Right there with... there's gotta be something, man. I mean, you even suggested that by the time it comes out, it could be like kind of like Breath of the Wild or Twilight Princess, where it's a dual release between two different systems. It's possible.
Yeah,
very possible.
2022, the Switch will be 5 years old. That's a life cycle. There's definitely going to be some kind of enhancement, a dock, a Pro. The next one's going to be right on the horizon, like.
Well, here's the thing. Switch came out early 2017. If you literally make it a 5-year cycle, then it's March 2022. So, I don't think a Switch successor comes out holiday 2021. I think holiday 2022 is when it could come out. I think they could definitely stretch the Switch 5.5 years. They may even go longer, right? Like, if they have, like, Nintendo said they want this to have an above average lifespan. maybe this goes 6 or 7 years, and then there's no need to have a cross-platform release. But what I do think there's going to be some sort of either they have the Switch revision or the Switch Pro or something, or there is the dock. We've talked about the 4K dock to dock plus. There's going to be something, I think, that's going to be more powerful, or it's going to make games look better for Nintendo games 3 or 4 years from now. I don't know what it is, but I think there'll be something.
Yeah, I think it would be... Yeah, I don't think there's any way there's not going to be. There's going to be definitely some sort of something they're going to want to sell. Because why not? I mean, they're already selling so many Switches. If you can get all those people to also buy a 4K dock or something, or get a lot of them to upgrade to a Switch Pro, the money. The units sold. It'd be insane.
Yeah. And I've just been playing God of War recently, and that game looks fantastic. It looks fantastic, albeit, like, it's kind of just interesting, like, so Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, I think, are on a whole other level, because the movement in that game is so fun. It's fun to traverse and play around the world. And when you look at games like Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War, because clearly it's some of the more advanced games from Sony, what they've been focused on is, like, really realistic, detailed graphics, and just kind of, like, battle mechanics, I think. And that, like, God of War, it's really good with telling a story. Like, they have some very good, like, lip syncing and voice actors, and they're telling a really good story with God of War.
Sony is definitely the storyteller of the three. Like, they definitely have their big narratives and such.
Right. What I'm trying to get is, like, you're saying the same thing. It's just like they focus on the cinematics and the storytelling, and the combat is very fluid. It's very great, but the movement in God of War, if there's a weak point, I would say it's the movement. The movement's very limited, and I understand it's by design, but it's kind of like all the platforming are like set things. Like there's like arrows basically everywhere you can climb or jump, kind of. Not jump, but at least where you climb. It's very Horizon. Like are they on the same graphical engine or something? Like I feel like.
I don't know, but it's possible.
Some of the design concepts are very similar between Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War. Well,
they do look very similar.
Right, and just to get to my point though, it seems like Sony focuses on cinematics, which isn't a bad thing, and Nintendo's focusing on movement and exploration, like how you interact and move about the game world. That's what they're focused on. So like moving around in Zelda and Mario is really fun, but I will admit that the battle mechanics in Zelda need a little bit more work.
Yeah.
Compared to, like, God of War's battle mechanics are amazing. So it would be interesting to see what Nintendo does with Metroid Prime. I think it's gonna be more. Well, with Retro Studios doing it, they might have a different take on it. But I imagine the movement's gonna be focused on a fair bit. But with that, I wonder what they could do with the graphics. Like, if they don't go for an open world style, if it's more of like a close corridor kind of thing, like the original Metroid Prime games, maybe kind of more like God of War, actually, because God of War is an open world, right? It may kind of feel like that, but it's not. Like, by doing that, you don't have to render a whole world, so you can focus on what's in front of you, what you can actually see, right? And you can put a lot more detail to it, because it's a smaller space, you can put a lot more detail in there. So I think by doing that, that's one of the ways Metroid Prime could look stellar. Actually, it's one of the reasons why Metroid Prime looks so stellar, because it's not rendering big spaces that much. It's kind of like basically what you can see, which is why you go room to room. Like, it doesn't load much beyond that room, which is why you have the different beam doors. It loads in between the different beam doors. And there's a lot of potential there for Metroid Prime 4, I think. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think just the way Metroid is structured, assuming they go a similar route, that's just so good for performance and stuff. It's why, like, some PS1 games, like Crash Bandicoot, looked so good, because they loaded things in a very particular way, the way the camera was faced. They could pull up a lot of stuff that just wasn't possible in most, like, full 3D games at the time. It's just things like that can really push hardware farther than typically. So it depends on what design choice they go for. Of course, they could have a design choice that completely negates that, like, just not really as possible as it was before. But we don't really know.
We don't know. We don't know. And I'm sorry, Brandon. I think I'm just gonna kind of end the podcast. I mean, I also want to finish your point.
I mean, that was pretty much my whole point. Was just like, I was just pretty much agreeing with you. Yeah, I think they could really push this game to be just. It's gonna look fantastic, I think.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna reiterate. I'm really curious to see whatever game the Vertical Studios has been working on, because that's gonna give us a really good idea of what's to come. Well, we got a couple more comments actually. So Mastermind saying, "I hope for an Oracle of Ages and Seasons remake."
I'd rather Link's Awakening remake, to be honest.
I want either. Link's Awake, either one for me is fine.
Oracle. I haven't played the Oracle games, so I guess if it got remade, then I'll be able to play them for the first time. So, yeah, I don't know.
And I think I might be in agreement with Solemn High. Let me read what he said here. He said, "I think there should be a mixture of traditional progression in Metroid Prime and also open world sections once you get deeper into an area. Like in Metroid Prime 1, you go back into a deeper part of the Chosen Ruins." I am 100% in agreement with you, Solemn High. Right there with you. I think there should be some open world spaces, but they definitely should also have a lot of their close corridor areas as well. Some of that typical Metroid gameplay. Some of
the bosses were in more open spaces.
They
get a boss
pretty much are. Like, it's kind of one of the things that you can kind of tell when you're going to fight a boss, because you enter this area and it's a big open space. You're like, okay.
I mean, they're more, but they're not like super big.
Right, I know. When you say open world, you want like a vast expanse, right?
Yeah. I just want something like bigger, something that like chase you around or something, you know, like an arena. And I think there were some more in like the 2 and 3, but like in the original, they mostly were just in a set spot, from what I remember. So I don't remember all of the bosses though.
Yeah. Also, an interesting point that Solemn High brought up. I've talked about these things before too, but they're just really cool. He's bringing up that, and depending on what you do, that can determine what place you go afterwards. Like, I actually like the idea the next Metroid Prime game has a divergent like progression, so it doesn't have to be completely open progression where you can do anything anywhere, but like there's options. So maybe there's like a few different pathways, and maybe they can intersect a little bit, but. And the end point's the same, but how you go about getting to the end point could be different depending on your playthrough. I think that's a great way to handle it. I would love to see that.
You could go to different areas handle different areas at different times. Like, not every area, obviously. Maybe do like an Ocarina of Time thing where maybe you can handle this section and then this section, and then there's more options, but you don't have to do it in a linear path, like the dungeons in Ocarina of Time, where you can go like this dungeon or this dungeon.
Yeah.
And once you beat those, then there's like a couple more choices, like something like that. That way they can keep the kind of progression system that are in place while give you options.
That's one way to do it. Yeah, that will work out really well too, for sure. I like these ideas, guys. I think they're all great ideas. We obviously won't see what Retro Studios is going to do for a while, so may have to. So, I'm not going to say the Metroid talk is going to slow down. That's an inevitability, at least when it comes to Metroid Prime 4. Maybe more information is going to come out about the development of the older Metroid Prime, how that was scrapped. So as that comes out, we will talk about that. But we're probably going to be focusing more on Metroid Prime Trilogy and 2D Metroid and other Nintendo stuff moving forward, even though I always like to type Metroid. So we'll see what happens. Actually, the two ideas we came up with, like talking about Metroid Prime, like Metroid morphology and metamorphosis and evolution, that's going to be really... I think there's some potential with that video. And also going into the history of Metroid Prime 1.5, which I didn't know about until this discussion. So, some cool stuff. Definitely some cool stuff, guys. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure to check out Brandon from What About Nintendo. The link to his channel is in the description below. And, yeah, have a great time. See you later.
Bye, guys.
Adieu.